somewhere.
We all started on a road we seldom intended to go.
Always falling one step behind. But why did I come back?
We have less than an hour. We have less than an hour. We have less than an hour. So find the diver. So find the diver. So find the diver.
Whoever's on the other side of the lane is lost. We will not stop.
Results.
Some of us stand on our own together.
Hi, my name is Chris Hunter. I'm Jeffrey Hunter's son, who was the first, actually second captain of the Enterprise and made the pilot the Cage. You know, I think that fan films are the most important part now of Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry always wanted Star Trek to move forward, to never stop being seen. And, fan films offer that infinite diversity, infinite combinations, and that's what fan films do. It gives you the ability to be part of Star Trek if you make a fan film. It's also many different ideas that Star Trek, I believe, needs, because Star Trek goes throughout the galaxy. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate fan films and Vance Major's work, and I just hope we can keep going with them.
I've been doing the Menard saga, which were heavily influenced on getting to know the backstory of the Menard character. Because my philosophy was, by the time we started getting to the Valiant films, Menard could be in the background, and they really wouldn't have to tell Menard's story and focus on him. We've already filled out his backstory. We could focus on the other characters, and people would already know who I was. Very similar to what they had with O'Brien when he moved to DS9. We didn't really have to focus on him. We already felt very familiar with that character. So that's what I wanted to do with Menard, telling Menard stories. The Constar Chronicles came about we had moved the Starbase Studio sets from Oklahoma to Arkansas, and at the time we were shooting 5 different films. The 4 Menard Saga films we were filming were the origin story for my character Menard, the film title Menard, not the character name. Then the film First Duty, the film The Valhalla Stone, and then the film Project Defiant, Dark Glimmer. I wanted to do a guilty pleasure film, because I figured if I'm going to be doing all these films, I at least want to do a next generation film. Something for me, something that would be kind of a one-off, film, nothing that would necessarily tie into the other films, but something that could like I said, be a guilty pleasure film. And something that I could look back on and say, well, at least I did a Next Generation film. Um, I didn't have access to a green screen, and I really didn't know much how to do a green screen film. I really didn't want to do an away mission film because that felt kind of lackluster to do a film that way. To me, it felt kind of cheap, especially when you had access to the sets. I really wanted to do, since this was supposed to be, my guilty pleasure film, I wanted to do them on sets. So that got me to thinking of, well, what story would I want to tell? Next generation uniforms on TOS sets. Since I didn't have access to next generation sets. So that got me to thinking of, Picard had mentioned in the episode of Relics to Scotty that he had one time visited a Constitution class ship, a museum ship. So I got to thinking, knowing that the Arkansas sets they were running on, we were basically running at the time on power generators, gasoline powered, generators. So we really didn't have much power going to the actual sets, and a lot of the time on the older sets, when we got to that building, a lot of the time we ran the risk of overloading the sets if we ran too much. So that's why in those set of films, you only saw certain stations on at a time, and even running then, we ran the risk of blowing a fuse, for lack of a better word. So we really were careful on what we were shooting and how we were shooting, because if we did too much, we'd overload something. So that got me to thinking, okay, I have access to the bridge. I don't have much power, and if I do, I can only really operate one station at a time, because I knew I would be shooting for Menard, and Menard's station had to be on because it had to look like a lively ship, because he was going to be talking to Emily. Knowing that was going to be the issue, we had engineering station on the whole time. Every other station was off. So I knew, okay, this is going to be a ship that it doesn't have power. And the reason being is because it is that museum ship. So, okay, we're going to be in the crisis mode. We're going to be in crisis mode. That puts us in, maybe the Borg. So, okay, we're in a space station at Wolf 359. The Borg's invading. This is the perfect time. We're hightailing it out of here. Therefore, it's an emergency mode. We can be in here. You can tell a story where people aren't going to ask too many questions. You're in that mode. You can have the Borg on screen. This is a very fun guilty pleasure film. And you can have that kind of hero rising up moment, and you don't really have to fight the Borg. So it really told a story on all cylinders, and it was a fun story to tell. And at the time, a lot of people were asking, is this Menard? Is this Menard's grandson? Because the quadlithium really hadn't been explained. I had introduced it into the stories because, again, in my timeline, I was jumping all across to, like, here's this, and then we go back and tell this, and then we come forward and tell this, and then we jump. We're jumping all over. But in the Menard saga, like, I hadn't really explained a lot of things. I was jumping all over, and that was my way of kind of, getting people to come back to this films. Adding the mystery, because there was no money element to the films. And so this was just one more. So what started off as a guilty pleasure film was, it stuck. A lot of people loved the film, and they asked, when's the next Constar film coming back? And I had no intention of doing another one. It was just supposed to be a guilty pleasure film, something that was for me, a one and done. And the fans spoke. They wanted more. They loved it. And so we did more.
Well, the first time I became involved, I was on Facebook looking for kind of the ability to get into film in some kind. I'd never really done it before. And there was a casting call for some extras in a Star Trek fan film. And I am a big Star Trek lover, so I was excited to maybe get involved in some way. So when I got down there, the director and one of the main actors in it, Vance, was talking to the different people that were there and finally came to me and said, "Hey, do you want to be my wife?" And I was like, "Yes." So it's kind of funny because we both knew he meant that in his show, and I understood that too, and I was really excited to be involved in it. So I was a background character for a couple different ones, and then I was able to play this character Emily for multiple, as well as another character, Mickle.
They had an open house where people can come and check out all the sets and stuff in Oklahoma City. And I got to meet Vance there. And I believe I was talking to him on Facebook before I went there a couple of times. But it was very cool. It was awesome. I got to meet a couple of other people, and I got to see Vance's vision. Vance has been one of those people who loves to help other people out with their fan films. And basically, Vance had his own series. I started off was going to be a photographer for the Melbourne series that Vance and Jeremy created. And then they asked me, would I like to have a small role, just a few lines? I was going to be Admiral Van der Waals. And I go, yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love that. And then a couple of things happened. Issue with some, well, we're not going to get into details about that. And then next thing you know, I end up being the captain. And I always tell this little joke when I tell this, but damn, I felt like James T. Kirk. Promoted to Admiral, then got demoted back to captain. But of course, I was never a captain in the first place, but y'all get the drift. And so I went there and brought a couple of friends of mine when we filmed 2 episodes of the Melbourne. Sadly, we never did get to finish that out. Very sadly. But that was not the end of it. Then Vance asked me if I'd be glad to come and play a doctor named Dr. Chilcott. I was in the Breaking Free episode. And that was a lot of fun. I enjoy that very much. But then again, every time I get to work with Vance, it's always a lot of fun.
I became involved with the Constar Chronicles because of my friend Vance. It was his show. I was a fan of it before. He was nice enough to ask me to be involved in some way. And for my own part, my own series, I had asked Vance to become a guest star on my show.
There was a fundraiser going on to help build new sets when Starbase Studios was in Oklahoma City, and I signed up for that, made some donations, and it was supposed to be just like a little walk-on role on one of the upcoming fan films at Starbase Studios. It turned into a tie-in between 2 different films. One was going to be called Starship Republic, and the other film was Melbourne. And I was offered the role of Dr. Todd, who was the chief medical officer on the USS Republic, whose daughter was assigned to the USS Melbourne. So there was this little crossover message that I recorded from the Republic to the Melbourne. Then I was offered a part on Project Defiant as the chief medical officer for the USS Defiant. That was filmed. And then after that, while I was actually on site filming for that part in Project Defiant, we had a couple of folks that couldn't make it to the filming that day, and I was just a background cadet who had one line in some Constar episodes that were being filmed, and it just kind of grew from there. My character got a name, a backstory, all of that.
2016, I went to the Topeka Comic Con. It was the, of course, 50th anniversary of the premiere of the original Star Trek, and TopCon was celebrating that anniversary, and they had brought up to have on display a mock-up of the bridge of the Starship Enterprise from the original series. I'd gone to check things out, and I was wearing my recently acquired Klingon costume, and in my Klingon character of Crow-Wrath, the character I created myself, and Vance Major was on hand with the studio, with the bridge mock-up, telling people about the studio and the fan film community, and I chatted with him a bit about it, and told him how much I enjoyed fan films and what I liked about what was happening in the world of fan films and what I didn't like about what was happening in the world of fan films. And he said, well, do you ever want to be in one? Or maybe I said, if you ever need a Klingon in one of them, get a hold of me. We exchanged information for Facebook.
At the time when I met Vance and also Mona, his wife, I was in Junction City. I was their car hop, actually, and every day that I worked, they would actually go up to Sonic all the time and get the same thing because she was pregnant with Roy, so she had the pregnancy cravings. But I would always have to order down pat and everything. And we just kicked it off. I joked with them all the time. And then Vance ended up bringing up the fan film idea and shot it to me. It's like, well, I've never acted. I've never played in a play or anything. I might not be good, might not be my forte. But I quickly found out that that's not true. I actually enjoy fan filming. It gives a twist on the whole variant of what your version is perceived as, basically. So it was actually very fun. That's how I became involved with it. Vance kind of looked upon me as if I was a close friend and everything, and I look up to Vance because he's a great guy and he's a good person, and I don't have very many of those people in my life, and I cherish that a lot.
Well, I first met Vance at Kingsland at the Neutral Zone Studios a few years ago. And we seemed to hit it off, and the next thing you know, he was inviting me to star in some of his films.
I always wanted a Star Trek uniform, and I decided now that I have a full-time job, I might as well get a Star Trek uniform. So picked one up, and I posted a picture of me doing the Live Long and Prosper thing on the community, the group on Facebook. It was a Star Trek cosplay group. It might have been one specific to the manufacturer. And Vance, he commented saying that he was doing fan films, and he wanted that I'd be a good fit. And I'm actually a professional actor, so I was like, you know what, sure. Like, why the hell not? And that's how I got started.
I got started doing some fan films for Vance. I believe it was actually in maybe 2017 or 2018. It was right around in there where I'm stuck on a ship and I'm pleading, save me. And he's just sitting in his captain chair, not going to save me. And of course, if you watch the movie, you'll find out why he does not come to my rescue. Then the second movie I did for him was A Killing of Two Birds, where the scene where I'm holding up a necklace was actually a real necklace that Gary Graham gave to me when I was helping him out at a convention. About the past 2 years, I think, I've taken over the role. There was another actress that was doing the part of Spangler, and she bowed out. So Vance actually asked me if I'd be at all interested in taking over that role. And I said, oh, yeah, it's a no-brainer. Of course, I would love to. The relationship that she has with Menard is a very complicated, complex one. I feel very, very sorry for Menard because his love life basically has pretty much sucked. If you look at some of his earlier films, he had the love of his life, Emily, that unfortunately ended up not making it. Had a very tragic incident, and unfortunately she ended up dying. And that episode is very, very, really tugs at your heart. Now comes along Spangler, and wow, we think, gee, Menard's gonna finally be able to have something work out for him. Yay! And it really actually does not quite work out. It's a tough relationship, and there are times you want to just reach into your screen and just shake Menard and say, what are you doing? Why did you say that? Why are you doing that? So it can be kind of frustrating at times.
About 3 years ago, this heavily bearded guy comes up to me at work and asked me how big a Star Trek fan I am. Well, that was Vance Major, and little did I know that answering that particular question would land me a few roles in some of his Star Trek films. About 24 to be at last count.
I have been involved with fan films since around 2000, and I believe it was 8 or 9, and I started off with Starship Farragut and helping them build their sets down in Georgia, down in Kingsland. And at that time, I came around to really enjoying fan films, and I wanted to do one on my own. So because I had helped with the building of Farragut and played some background characters during some of the episodes, I was given the opportunity to use the sets to start a series of my own called Dreadnought Dominion. Now, I shot 2 actual films with that. The first one was Anchors Away, and the second one was Haunted. But at that time, I had to leave the fan film industry, and I turned it over to 2 wonderful people, Gary Davis and Randy Wren, and they've continued the tradition of the Dreadnought. Gary and Randy have been very good friends with Vance. He helped them very much out in the beginning after I had left in finding places to reshoot, because at that time our studio down in Georgia had been taken over by another organization, and they were not allowing fan films except theirs to be shot on it. So from my understanding is Vance helped them find a place to shoot and continued by helping and supporting them, which I'm very happy that they did. So when I got back involved and I met Vance, we started talking about a couple different concepts and stuff like that. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, well, would you mind if I wrote a couple episodes in Constar that maybe help bring you back in? And I said, most certainly, I'd be more than happy.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
That was my wonderful ThinkPad, I didn't say, oh, I said I'm sorry, and she thought I said Siri.
Dreadnought Dominion and Vance Major go way back. We're almost always up for some crossover fun or just to do a quick scene for one of his episodes, or maybe a voiceover. And we know that he's usually up for a quick scene in one of our films. My relationship with Vance in Constar Chronicles has been a good one.
I've been a part of the viewing audience for Constar for a while. And like Vance, I'm a serial costume collector. So there's a Facebook post earlier in quarantine where they had people showing off their uniforms. And so I showed off pictures of what I had in chat. And Vance sent me a message wanting to know if I'd be interested in doing some work for him. And I said, absolutely.
I got involved with the Constar Chronicles because I was familiar with Vance's films, and he asked if I wanted to play Nagura in the film, or one of his films.
Well, I'd done a few fan films with David Cheng. He recruited me to play Captain Kirk, actually Admiral Kirk, for The Human Adventure. And I hadn't done anything like that before, but it was a great opportunity to play in the Star Trek universe, and who wouldn't want to do that? And someone here at Constar saw me and took a risk on me. I'm glad they did, because it's a lot of fun.
I've been a Star Trek fan from the very beginning, and I remember when we didn't have Star Trek until we had Star Trek the Motion Picture, which seemed like forever. So the idea of becoming a part of an actual Star Trek film, or acting in a fan film, was a big deal. I had to do it. I went to a couple of open houses that they had in Oklahoma City. Got to see the fabulous set, the former Exeter set, which was a fan film that I had really enjoyed and did just an excellent job. Big fan of Starship Exeter. But this was their set, and it was in Oklahoma City, and it was there to use, and it was just like stepping onto the bridge of the Enterprise. There were a number of productions there: the Ajax, the Republic, the Valiant, and Starship Melbourne. And I saw a lot of other people around. Vance was having fun. I saw this connection that they had, and I thought, wow, that would really be good to be a part of. Unfortunately, most of the places that were productions that were casting were looking for younger folks. I can appreciate that. I should have probably tried, but I accepted it. I was in contact with Vance later about a photo of somebody had took of me at the convention. I didn't have access to it, and I requested access to it for whatever reason I didn't have access, and that ticked off something in his mind, and I looked like an admiral to him. And it turns out that they were having a shuffle over at the Melbourne. They had a captain, they had an admiral, and unfortunately the captain was not going to be available for the shoot. So the admiral went over to the captain's part, which was a larger part, and that left an opening for an admiral. And they thought of me. They checked me out, found my acting credits, saw that I had the gravitas to be a admiral, and I appreciate that very much.
In 1998, I started making home movies with my friends, a series of monster movies that we have been making for the last 20 plus years. When I got married, I drafted my wife into the movies. When we had kids, they got drafted into the movies, and we have had an expanding mythology over 30 some odd movies. So my friend Grace Bridges, at the time she was my editor, this was probably 2013, 2014. She was visiting the States from New Zealand, and she was hitting the convention circuit. And she stayed with us, and she watched some of these home movies. and was very excited and wanted to make one. And I said, sure, what do you want to make? She had a homemade Star Trek Voyager uniform, and she's a huge Star Trek fan. So she said, let's make a Star Trek movie. Well, full disclosure, I didn't know anything about Star Trek. I had watched some Voyager in high school. I never could get into Next Gen or Deep Space Nine. But I said, sure, we'll make a Star Trek movie. So we made Splashdown that weekend. It was very rushed. I didn't put a lot of thought into it. I didn't think it would go anywhere. I mean, we make these movies all the time, and it was just something fun to do with Grace while she was in town. So we made it in 2 days. And then I put it on the shelf, and I didn't think about it. So fast forward some years later, and I'm bored, and I'm on the internet, and I come across Star Trek Continues, and I was just blown away by how professional it was and just the neat idea of the Star Trek fan film. It was so beyond my reach. But I wanted to do something with that character and to continue his story, especially after seeing some of these other great fan films and being inspired by what they did. But I had no costume, I had no CGI, I had no Star Trek props, no sets, I had nothing except just this idea that, oh, I'd like to see Commander Mitchell again. So I didn't think it was ever going to happen. I kind of put it off to the side, whatever. But I'm bored one day on the internet, and I'm looking around, and I come across an interview with Vance Major. And he's talking about his Star Trek fan films. And I was immediately, before I saw the movie, I think it was Time's Echo. It had just come out, and he did an interview about it. And before I saw the movie, I read the interview, and I was struck by how inclusive he was. That he would put you in his movie, even if you had no costume, no CGI, no props, no sets, you had an equal opportunity to be in his movie. And I thought, there it is. I can have Commander Mitchell come back. I'll just be a guest spot in one of Vance's movies. It was like a revelation because Vance didn't have this huge budget. He didn't have all these professional actors. It was just him and his friends making a movie, which is what I had been doing for 20 some odd years with my friends and family. And I felt a kindred spirit with Vance. So I hit him up on Facebook, and he immediately responded. We called each other like that first night, and we talked about what we wanted out of a movie and what we were looking for in an experience in making a movie. We weren't interested in selling anything. We weren't interested in making a resume for some big career. We were just making movies for the fun of making movies with our friends. And he said, I got a part just for you. We can put you right in there. I said, great. I don't have a costume. He said, no problem. Doesn't matter. Full disclosure, I ended up buying a little costume to wear for it. But he was very generous, and he said, not only would you like to be in the movie, but since I know that you have made all these home movies, would you like to edit the movie yourself? Sure, why not? At the time, again, I thought it was my one and only appearance, my one and only editing job. Little did I know that over a year later, I would have starred in so many of them and edited even more of them. So it really ballooned. It escalated as an experience.
Well, Vance heard some music that I had written for Gary Brown. It was music to what the new series of Strange New Worlds could sound like, and Vance really liked it, so he asked if he could use it, and Gary and I said sure. And so that's what you hear at the beginning of each of these episodes. So with the music that I've written, I hope that you get a little bit of flavor of Star Trek, from various different shows, and you also get a little bit of flavor of myself in these fan films. And growing up, I always wanted to write music for Star Trek, and now I get to do that. I'm sitting here as a 32-year-old dude, and I get to, play in these fan films. I get to, write music for them, and it's awesome. And thank you to Vance for letting me do that, for giving me this opportunity, because not a lot of people get to do that. Not a lot of people get to do what they've always wanted to do, and I get to do that. Thank you, Vance.
Adam Mullen has kind of done it all. He's kind of a jack of all trades. He composes. He's kind of done it for several iterations. What they dubbed the Menard Saga, I pretty much had those as their own set of films, which of course they all pretty, they all kind of are. They are, yet they aren't. They all kind of fall under the umbrella of a series. But my mentality was I wanted to stay as far away from anything being considered a series as possible. So everything was pretty much, you watch it, you could kind of take it as is. When I went to the Constar Chronicles, the only thing that was kind of missing from that was a title card, basically. But the opening theme of each one of those was virtually the same. Opening up, though, was for the Constar, was all of the Constar ones were the same. Then you get to the B5 era, those were the same. Same thing with the Constar A, those were the same. At least that was what my mindset was. After a while, I think we got kind of lazy and we all kind of just gravitated toward the initial Constar theme. And I went to Adam and asked him, I said, look, we can't directly rip off Battlestar Galactica, but this is the vibe that I'm going for. What can you do? And he came up with something and said, here you go, what do you think? And I loved it. And that's the wonderful thing about Adam, is you can send him something and say, this is what I'd like, what can you do? And he'll get back to you fairly quickly and just give you something that's original, yet definitely inspired from the source. And then when we went to Constar Continues and Constar Concludes, whatnot, I had heard Gary Brown, Adam had done some work for him, and I loved that theme so much. I think it was their interpretation of A Strange New Worlds theme. And I loved that so much that I asked if we would be able to use that for a Constar, and they both agreed. But that was Adam's work on that. Such a beautiful theme. Everyone kind of wants to work with Adam. I know Adam has done some video game work. He really is just, outside of his, 9-to-5 job, he has his hand in a lot of things. On YouTube, he works with a group. They call themselves, I think the show is the Watchtower Watchtower Database, I believe. But they they do a bunch of thing about the animated series, animated DCU. Very smart individual, funny guy. Sending him something saying, "Hey, where do you think the music needs to be at?" He looks at the films and says, this really doesn't need it. I don't think you should. Don't waste your time. It doesn't need it. Okay. Or hey, it only needs it here. Okay, awesome. He doesn't waste his time. He doesn't waste mine, and I appreciate that. And most people, they have that inflated sense of ego. Adam, there is no ego. He'll let you know, hey, we don't need it. He is the sweetest person that I know. And I know that sounds weird, coming from, guys usually don't say, oh, he's a sweet individual, but he really is. He is one of the most kindest people you'll meet. And like I said, he's one of the smartest, and his work stands.
We don't have just one specific job. We learn it all. because we are short of help a lot of times. We're short of volunteers. It's all a volunteer effort because we love making fan films. You know, without sound, without uh, special effects, without post production, and people behind the scenes creating the CGIs, putting the sound in where it goes correctly, putting the beep 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 buttons that you don't have a film. They're the ones that bring it to life.
You see here in the background, you see right here, I'm working on one of Vance's right now. I just literally finished rendering as I was hitting the record button. So just finished rendering, and you're going to be seeing the shot here very soon in one of his films. I can't say enough about the guy. I can't say enough good stuff about him, to be honest with you. He's done a fantastic job. It's kind of an odd story, or kind of an unusual story about how we got together. Was I was looking for somebody to help me with Lexington while I was in Oklahoma. He jumped on board, started helping find actors and everything, and just over the years, he gradually started, jumping in more and more and helping me. And conversely, I started jumping in more and more, helping him with the CG, because he needed a lot of CGI work. He needed a lot of stuff done. And I think Melbourne, was one of the first ones I've done for him. He's very easy to work with. There have been times where he sends me up a CG shot, and he sees this, but when I go to render it and I go do a preliminary, and it's like, man, this just doesn't work. Or hey, wait a minute, if we do this, this, and this, maybe it will be a lot popping, be better. He's always been open to new ideas, or hey, if you got something better and it works, then let's do it. It may be better than what I got. And I'm the same way with him with Lexington. Hey, if there's something more, if this works better, then I'm all for it.
It's been cool collaborating with him. We kind of just go back and forth with ideas. He tells me how the storyline's going, and based on that, we come up with some effect shots, and then put them on the screen there.
I had wanted to make Star Trek fan films since I was 12 years old, but I never thought that I would be able to do it very well. And if I wasn't able to do it well, then I just didn't want to do it at all. And the funny thing is, when I met Vance, I'd been a filmmaker for a decade, making a film every single year with professional equipment, with actors, and, it had just, escaped me, the notion of even doing it. Vance was doing it with his friends. He was doing it in his hometown, in his backyard, in his own house, shooting with his cell phone. When I saw that, I thought, he's figured it out. He's really figured out the formula for doing this. We all thought fan films were dead. We thought that was the end with the guidelines, but Vance figured it out. If it hadn't been for him, I never would have thrown my hat into this, and he's a hero to me because of that. I actually filmed for Constar before I filmed anything for Avalon. He asked me to do a cameo in one of his films as, the Kenny Rogers character, and I set up in my own office studio on a green screen and put on a uniform, and I had just gotten a black eye at martial arts class a few days before. So when I did the clip, I had a black eye. It was the security officer, you should see the other guy. Shooting Ghost Ship in Kingsland was his idea. I mean, I'd always watched Continues, and I really thought it was, the greatest fan film series ever made. And it was actually Vance that called Ray before I did and got something set up to where I could go down there and film. Then when I got back and we hadn't gotten all the material that we needed to in the 2 days that we were there, it was Vance again who introduced me to Wolf and to Dan, and said, you should go talk to these guys. And then that's how I found the Arkansas sets finally, and established really wonderful friendships with those guys, and was able to shoot there.
The whole idea of a Star Trek fan film is the fan wants to make the film. We love Star Trek so much that we want to honor it. We want to play in the sandbox. And what Vance did at a time when so many Star Trek fan films were just trying to one up each other. And, we had the $10,000 and $20,000 fan films, and we had the $100,000 fan films. We were going to get $1 million fan film. And Vance is making fan films that he's basically funding with the money he finds in the cushions of his sofa, if that. So what Vance did as he created this amazing panorama, this tapestry of different stories about this character of Eric Menard, was he said to fans who wanted to make fan films, you don't need all that. You don't need 10 or 20 or 40 or $100,000. You don't need elaborate sets, and you don't need amazing costumes or incredible actors. You got a cell phone? Make a fan film. So other fans were like, well, if he can do it, then yeah, so can I.
Vance is all about telling stories, and just that's all he cares about. He has all of his friends in his movies. Anyone who's interested can put on any costume they want and just play Star Trek. And so it's very pure, and it's a beautiful thing that he's done over these past few years. And he's done over 100 fan films. I mean, Vance really is now the godfather of Star Trek fan films. And I love him because he's just such a decent and honest guy, and we've become great friends. And he can ask me for anything that he needs to help out him. We're always ready to send him something or help in any way we can. And I know that Josh Owen and I have a little surprise in store for him, and we can't wait to be part of this legendary now series of Star Trek fan films.
I've been acting in them. I might be producing a Sanders spin-off. I'm also doing or planning some other things with Vance for his channel and for my channel. For those who don't know, I have a YouTube channel. Just type my name, Sean Reimer, and I'll pop right up. So, but yeah, I've shot. I don't recall how many films because scenes kind of get messaged across each other all the time. So I think roughly around 4 or 5 films at this point. So yeah,
I would say that it's been very therapeutic making these films. I would say that I have fans more extreme than most. You have one group of fans that say the films that I make are very Star Trek, and they live and die by that. They hold it this high on the scale of what the films are in terms of Star Trek, and then you have the other fans that say that it is not Star Trek at all, and that my films actually lower the bar of in terms of what it is for Star Trek. And I would say that it's they're both not wrong.
It was actually very fun. Also, Vance was open to any ideas that I had, if I had any. Sometimes we incorporated some ideas into the lines or into the filming set that we did. So definitely, if you are interested in fan filming or want to get interested in it, I would say have an open mind. Open mind, open heart, and get creative with it. Have fun. Don't be serious, really. Don't stress majorly about messing up. It's okay. I mess up a lot. That's why you do take 1, take 2, take 3, take a breath in between after saying take 1, and then just roll with it. Roll with it.
You're among friends. It's like us hanging out at a convention, but there's a camera on us this time around. And so we try not to break character and say our lines, and we're just adults pretending like when we were kids. And it's totally fun.
It's been fun being able to take the words that Vance has written and imagining that I've been speaking with him and just filming myself and seeing the finished product well done and integrated as part of his story.
It's been a wonderful experience overall. Both of them have been different characters in different times in the Star Trek universe, and it has been an extremely rewarding experience.
It's great to play in this sandbox, play in Vance's sandbox, and I'm always happy to get the invitation to work here, and I hope that it continues forever until it completely plays out.
There is no definitive we're the hero. It's, someone's hero is someone else's villain. And I believe that, the films are very reflective of that. I know certainly I'm the villain of someone's story, and vice versa.
I always get a script and a general idea of what's needed. Sometimes I have ideas of my own, and I run them by him. But Vance is always up for whatever ideas I have. He loves for his contributors to have enough enthusiasm to have ideas and almost never says no. He wants his guest actors to put some of themselves into their performance, and that makes working with him a rewarding and fun experience.
He'll send me a script, and because this is the character I had created on my own, and because I am a Klingon fan going way, way back, I have oftentimes, with him sending me scripts, said, how about if I go ahead and rewrite it a bit to make it more Klingon? And he trusts me. And originally he said, why don't you record like 3 times and send me all 3 and I'll pick and choose. And after Brittany's like, you got it first take, I trust you, don't worry about it. It's all been these talk box thingy over the screen that he pulls up in character and watches and responds to. So I've been able to record here at home, occasionally interrupted by a cat. But the experience has been fine. It's been fun. And I look forward to doing it more often with him, and I would love to do it with anyone else who's got a fan film in the works.
My experience working on these films has been rewarding and fun. It's always nice to be creative, and it's always a joy playing in Vance's playground.
I enjoy working with Vance whenever he has a film or a scene for me to film. I am always ready to do that. And pre-COVID, I always enjoyed filming scenes with other people, and because of all the interactions we did with each other and, laughing at each other's mistakes and learning from each other. But now the fun is in the story, and Vance always has great stories.
What Vance has done during quarantine with the Squawk Box format is nothing short of genius, really, especially given what quarantine has meant to so many different fan films. Traditional fan films are big on sets and on locations. I mean, you have Star Trek Continues, New Voyages, everything's done with Farragut. So what he's done is he's put together the system where you can act and then send your stuff in, and he edits it together. And you can create it in your own space, in your own time. And as long as you're semi-organized, it's a pretty good thing.
I can do a film if I'm focused and I don't have any distractions. I can knock out a script within a night. And it's not like my films are, very professional. I write dialogue, and that's something that I'm very good at writing, I believe. But it very much is like, Kevin Smith's early work of Clerks, where you've got 2 people that walk into frame, or one person's in frame, another walks in, they have a conversation, and then the one person leaves. And that's kind of like my films. They're very easy films to do, and you can change the setting. The conversation won't change. They could have it on a starship, or it can be on a comm box, or it can be on a planet. The conversation really won't change. The setting, the good thing about my films is the settings really don't matter. The conversations are what the heart of the story are about. And that's what my films do, is they take the story and just have a Star Trek wrapper, and then go forward. And that's where I feel like Star Trek has always worked best, is they take these tales and put them in this universe that we all aspire to want to be in, and it's been a lot of fun because you meet people who are like-minded, who want to tell that similar story, and who see the same vision that you do, and then you go forward.
I would say it's a lot of hard work, but I think it's the inspiration of the script that you really want to do a good job because you want to bring it to life on the screen. So you study it, you research it, and you put your best foot forward.
As an editor, or an amateur editor, I'm always looking to kind of up my game and to learn new skills and to look at different ways of solving a problem. And Vance's movies, they bring their share of challenges in spades, because everyone is filming all across the world. Some are filming on cameras, some are filming on phones, some are filming in a widescreen ratio, some are filming top to bottom like a phone. Everyone's bringing different quality. Some are in front of green screens that are well lit. Some are bringing footage in front of green screens that are not so well lit. Some are outside with traffic or with wind blowing. There is always a challenge. Vance will always call me up and say, I got a new movie I would like you to edit. Real easy. 2-3 scenes. Real easy. Just two guys talking to each other. It's never easy. There's always something about the footage that makes it a challenge. But I have learned so much from working on those movies and overcoming those obstacles that I brought into my own home movies. So they're always a challenge, but how you rise above the challenge is part of the fun of working on them.
The problem most people have is they want the most perfect film. For me, I want the best story that I can. Visual effects don't really matter to me. On certain films, it does, because that's the point of the story. Like, you cannot tell a film like The 11th Hour on the cheap. And when I say on the cheap, I mean visual effects wise. I'm not talking about money, because I don't really pay for things. We have a network of people that we work with, who all need things, and we all work together. But I'm all for, like, if you don't have a CGI artist, just go grab a Lego spaceship and hold the ship as it comes through like this. I'm all for that, because to me, it's not the CGI that tells the story; it's the characters. At this point, like, none of us are trying to compare with CBS, and we all know what we are, you have your fans that are very forgiving, and we know what we're trying to do. And then you have those people who are not forgiving. And those are the people who it's like, you're never going to please them anyway, so why try? You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your life, if you're doing it right. And you make a lot of good friends. So you go through your ups and downs of life making the films. It's been a lot of fun.
When we went out and we did, a legit shooting day at Warp 66 for Constar, we just had fun. I got to just be an actor that day. I just got to play Star Trek that day and put on a uniform and be silly. And Vance has like a really no pressure way that he makes his films. It was probably the most fun I've had doing a Star Trek fan film for a long time, to come, because there was no stress. It was just making a fan film with your friends, and it's a day that I'm always going to remember. It's a day that I'm always going to love and cherish.
The last time we got together, the building that we're filming in had some sets upstairs, and then there are a couple of sets downstairs. And between takes, or when we're not needed in that particular scene, we'd sit downstairs in the basement, Down in the basement, there's the bathroom. Okay, that's great. That's where you got to go. It's far enough away that, the sound's not going to travel upstairs when they're filming on the bridge. When they flushed the toilet, when it was refilling the tank, it kind of made this whine right near the end that sounded like a phaser on overload sound effect. Flush the toilet and, do that phaser overload whine whistle. So one of the guys got his phone out there, flushed the toilet a few times, got it to do that whistle, recorded the audio of it a couple of times, and there is actually a scene in the Constar films where that toilet refilling phaser on overload sound has actually made it into the films.
I remember being in one of the films where I had a measly 2 lines and I couldn't even get my 1 line correct. And I kept screaming, we laughed, but nobody was angry. And it was really, really great to just be around people who are kind of like a second family now.
You couldn't have kept one alive?
You wanted... Ah!
That dance move, you got it.
That was perfect.
You got it, right?
I was filming a scene outside in the winter on a ice planet, and my grandparents own this cabin out there, so I was like, yeah, that'll be perfect. So I was filming, and my grandfather kept insisting on driving his Ski-Doo, a snowmobile, up and down, insisting that I go for a ride, and he kept interjecting himself into the scene. And in that scene, you can still see tracks, so it's fun. It really is fun.
Every time I seem to be making a good take to myself, the German shepherds out there start listening to the sirens coming down the road. It's not a pretty sound.
There was one scene was Nathan T. Cooper and Vance. It was the Mirror Universe and me, Brittany, a couple of others, and Greg, and we was there on our knees right there. And Vance will look at me and he'll say this line, and I'll repeat it, and then Vance will get upset. And then we did the line. I said the line again, and Vance was getting upset. And I was trying to figure out like, what the heck's going on? And then he's like, you're not supposed to say nothing. I was like, that's not what I got. I was supposed to say a line after this. Apparently, they changed some of the lines and the scripts, and not all of us got it. So the whole time, I think we did like 4 or 5 takes on that. I just kept saying the line over and over. And I'm sorry. It's funny now. You think about it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Vance, whenever you change the script, make sure you send it out to everybody.
While filming The Mind's Eye, my first one, when we filmed that last scene where just before they beamed back up to the ship, the 2 main characters, and there was a total of 6 of us at the beginning, but only 2 actually beamed up. That's because the rest of us were ghosts from one of the characters' past. The funny part comes in when the camera was on one side of a tree, and you see the 6 of us there, and as the camera pans over on the other side of the tree, once it gets to the tree, we all start running. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I hope I get there in time. That's because by the time it gets to the other side, you only see the 2 main characters that they get beamed up. And that was a lot of fun.
In my first appearance as Admiral Vandenbosch, they didn't have a uniform for me. They had used up their money doing the rest of the show, and then they had an Admiral outfit for the other Admiral, but not for me. I'm supersized. So they were going to shoot it, and we were only going to shoot it this much, and cut it so that it appeared that I have my full Admiral uniform with just a white turtleneck. that turned out to be harder than we thought it would be. Local sources weren't available. It was the wrong time of year, but just could not turn up with a white turtleneck that would work. I had been through my own wardrobe and tried to find something, and I had failed. Went back through it again, and then I see that I had a whole bunch of white shirts, like this one, but white. And I thought, what would it look like if I put it on backwards? Sent Vance a few pictures, and he says, that's it. Go with that. And as far as I know, everybody liked it, and nobody ever knew that I was just wearing a plain, ordinary button-down white shirt backwards.
In Chain of Command, I forgot to take my t-shirt off. You can see the neckline of the t-shirt clearly inside the neckline of my toss shirt. And now my goober-headed move is there for all to see for generations to come.
Back with Melbourne and Republic. It was my first experience with any sort of fan films. The original bridge set that we had at Starbase Studios in Oklahoma City. Between takes, we'd wander the different sets and look at the transporter room, look at the sick bay. But the thing is, you had to be quiet because the building that we filmed in echoed. And one of my fellow castmates was watching a YouTube video. Apparently there were some kids in the video that started laughing pretty darn loud, and it sounded like a bunch of kittens playing around. Vance was on the bridge set helping to film the scene that was going on. Next thing I heard was, "Cut! Who let the doggone kittens on the doggone bridge?" And granted, yes, I am sanitizing the actual words from what were said at the time. But it was so funny the way it was said. Everybody cracked up at the time. And since then, every time that I've gone back to film, I try to bring a stuffed cat with me and sneak it onto the set and send a picture later on after we're done filming of the doggone cat's on the set again.
My birthday present from my best friend, he lives up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He gone to a rummage sale and he found a Star Trek collectible book from a dealer there who was also a Star Trek fan. And in talking to him, Carl found out that this guy had actually seen Vance's films and was a big fan of them and stuff. And Carl described who he was buying the book for. It was me. And he described the film that I was in, some of the films I was in, and the role that I played. And this person had actually seen them, and he was a big fan of that. So as a result, Carl got my birthday present for a few dollars cheaper than the original price just because of that.
There was a certain reveal at the very end of the Requiem film. I'm supposed to do something very Kirk-like at the end. It's like a reveal, like, what's he doing here? And so I was, had my back to the camera and doing one of these things, who's that? And I did that over and over and over and over again until I thought, well, maybe that looks like him.
So far, Vance has asked me to reprise my role as Admiral Nagura that I originated in my own fan films, and it's been a pleasure to do so. It's really good to be able to see that character not only in films that my friends and I have made more locally, but also to see Nagura basically make a guest appearance in one of Vance's films, or in one or more of Vance's films. And it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate that.
Well, this character of James T. Kirk means an awful lot to me. He was one of my heroes, one of my fictional heroes when I was a kid. And portraying him in the fan films is intimidating because he's a hero to a lot of other people. Everyone knows how he looks, how he acts, and I'm none of those things. So if I mess it up, everyone's going to hate me. So I just try to put myself in the character's shoes for the given situation and try to move forward from there. But definitely an icon, as we all know and love.
I created the character of Commodore Sam Grissom, so it means a lot to me, and I'm looking forward to reprising that role and coming back in my own unique way as a Commodore again after demoting myself from Rear Admiral, and continuing on with my characterization and hopefully doing cross episodes with Constar and Dreadnought Dominion, and just completely continuing on the fun of fan films.
Kevin Ruiz, to a degree, I mean, I can definitely see myself in him. He's had it kind of rough. He's not always been, I guess, the insider, you would say. I mean, he's always been kind of the outsider. He gets accepted by the Constar family, by Captain Menard and everyone else. Makes a quick and fast friendship with Russo, who I'm friends with Greg, who plays Russo in real life. I mean, we don't get to talk that often, but Greg, you're awesome. You're cool. Ruiz has made some questionable decisions in his time in the Constar series. Just as I've made some questionable decisions in the past. We've both had to face the consequences of those decisions, and we've both turned the corner from those bad decisions and have both worked on making something better. There's still always a little bit of, he did this in the past and stuff like that is both in Ruiz and myself. And I think that's what makes him so relatable to me, is because it's not just a one-dimensional, okay, here's this character and that's it. I mean, this character actually has, I guess you would say, a life, He has a story. He's not just a disposable red shirt or gold shirt. He's a person.
The character of Eric Menard, he was invented by Michael Elke from Starship Valiant fame. And he had invited me on to Starship Valiant to be the chief engineer of that show. And it's something that I always give credit for. This is Michael's character. Especially when I do an engineer scene, I always keep in mind, I try not to overstep in the regard of, this is Michael's time frame. This is Michael's, this is Michael's character. When we get over into the Constar area, I do tend to kind of think of it as, okay, now this is more my area. And there's been a few ideas that I have felt, nope, I don't know if Michael would approve. I'm not going to go down this road. Or if it does, I check with him. I'm like, hey man, what would you think about this? And Michael has always been like, no, hey, go do it. Yeah, I like that idea. I always try to give the respect to that character's origins. At my real job, we're not allowed to wear jewelry on the production floor, because I work at a factory, because if the machinery catches your, you know, ring finger, it could pull it off and your finger's gone. So I thought, anytime I film, I want to wear my wedding ring, because, you know, I never, 12 hours out of the day, I don't get to wear it. And a lot of time we work 5 to 6 days a week. So when I film, it means a lot to me to wear this. So I came up with this complete made-up backstory that, I don't even know if we're ever going to get to this. And I said, actually, in my mind, and I explained what I thought, that my wife was one of the ones killed during the battle that was in the first episode, and a lot of people, when their spouse dies, they can't let go of their spouse. They throw themselves into their work. That's where I saw Menard as a character, and he can't let go of his wife, and that's why he still wears his wedding ring. That's very realistic of people when they lose their spouse. And Michael loved that idea. He's like, I like that. Let's keep it. And I never forgot that. He always let me create, have creative input on the character. Always. And it's that type of respect that he gave me as an actor, as what would eventually be a fellow creator, and most importantly, as a friend. And every time I wrote the character of Menard, I always wrote him, or at least from an engineer, from that time, I always wrote him as a character that saw Bishop as his best friend. And, in the Next Generation time, he looks back at, those were the good old days. If I could only get that time back. I had my wife, I had my best friend. Those were the good old days. And it's because of the respect that, Michael has allowed me to play as this character. Most people would say, nope, this is my character. I don't want you to do this. I don't know what you're going to do. It's going to taint my product. He's never done that. He's even allowed me to take footage from his first film to put in the origin of my character, the film Menard. And most people wouldn't do that. They'd say, I paid for the CGI for the Battle of the Shots, and I paid for the visual effects and this, and don't take it for your film. That's not, he's never done that. He's so generous. And that has been the prime example of how I've tried to treat everybody in my productions.
The character of Eric Menard is a window into Vance Major, and that's really what I find so fascinating. So when Vance first started releasing Menard films, and this was before Constar even existed, he jumped around in the timeline of Menard because the character of Menard was fascinating in that he was long-lived because he found this thing called the Valhalla Stone. It just extended his life. He didn't age. But that was just an excuse for Vance to be able to wear, TNG outfits and TOS outfits and Cage Era outfits and basically every, costume that he could possibly find. So we get to watch a character aging, growing, learning, developing, so that the Menard of the 24th century is different than the Menard of the 23rd century. And there's been some tragedy that he's learned from, and there's been some dark times, and there's also a certain lightness that comes in later in his life. He jumped around. So if you're watching these fan films, you kind of have to do a little mental concentration. You have to pay attention to figure out what Menard's life is like. And the Phantom is also an interesting character because that's also Menard. That's the dark Menard. That's the Menard for the mirror universe, who's not quite all there. But Vance knows he has a dark side of him. I mean, he can't have grown up with a father like his. without really facing that dark part of yourself and knowing it's there. And so in the Constar series, Menard literally faces off against his doppelganger. But that's really Vance's almost daily struggles with, his own demons, which he has overcome, obviously, because he's a great guy.
Vance's movies are, to me, so complex. There's a lot there. And I think his screenplays are very complex. And there have been times when he has sent me a script, and I'll be honest with you, I really had to read it several times to kind of let it sink in, to kind of understand really what was going on, because there's so much there. I love how Vance is very diverse. He has episodes that are 3 minutes long. He has episodes that are an hour long. He has episodes that are really on a bridge. It's not green screen like this. He has episodes where he's in the next generation uniforms, and then he's got a lot of episodes where he's in the TOS uniforms. He jumps all over every which way, and I love how he did the mirror universe thing, where it was red versus green. What team are you on? I'm on Team Red.
When I was first brought in for Admiral Van den Bosch, they told me that they wanted somebody that was likable, somebody that didn't scream evil admiral, and also had the gravitas to be an admiral. That's been one of my guiding principles throughout. Van den Bosch does everything he can to make sure that his people succeed, that the mission succeeds, and he weighs it very thoughtfully. But once he's committed to an action, he does it. You may not like it. You may not like it. But he is committed that it is the right call.
Christopher Sanders is a character that I've been wanting to play for a long time. He's basically... So for those who don't know, when it comes to acting, every character comes from some place within you. And I imagine Sanders as a more extreme version of me. Like, if I got to really act upon all the choices and impulses that I had. So he's very outspoken. He's very cynical. He's very, very honest. Sometimes too honest. And there's times where I wish I could be Sanders. Like, I'm a little bit soft-spoken, and I'll bite my tongue on occasion. But there's times where I'm just like, God, I wish I could go into Sanders mode right now. Like, I work retail, and there's times where I really just want to, lay into someone as Sanders. So, that's really where it comes from. A lot of cynicism.
Well, as I said, I play the role of Dan Hawkins in the Constar films, and playing that role has, of course, helped me become more confident in life, because Dan Hawkins is a guy who comes off as being confident in everything he does. And so I look forward to gaining more confidence as I play that role, and that's going to help me improve my performance whenever I play him, and also it's going to help me in my other activities in life too.
I think I'm like a lot of people involved in fan films where their character is kind of an extension of themselves and what they think. So I do think that Captain Lobato is a bit based on me. So I mean, on that angle, he obviously means a lot. The other part of it is that he's a Starfleet officer, and that makes this a dream role come true. I think there are a lot of people who, if they had the chance, and the circumstances were right, would jump at the chance to enlist in Starfleet. They really believe in the mission of Starfleet. In a lot of the ways, the values of Starfleet are something that I try to live up to. Like Vance, I have a small child, and when I play Star Trek with her, she wants to know what it's like to be a Starfleet officer, and this kind of gives a chance for the character Lobato to shine through to my little cadet.
Obviously, there's a part of the actor, in this case me, and what I value. It also the character can be either an extension of who you are as a person, or it can be a completely made up aspect. So there's a value there. There's a meaning behind it. And the longer you play a character, the more you can put into it. Ultimately, the character becomes its own living entity if you do your job right. So there's an inherent meaning behind that. So, yeah, I would say importance and the chance to explore an alternate side of oneself.
I get to tell my story of my life translated to Star Trek. Um, again, not everything's, a perfect translation. But I would say that the character of Menard is probably, when you watch a Vance film, because of course there's some differences when you watch Menard in Michael's films, or Menard in an Avalon film, or Menard in, George Kyan's film Antilles, or Dominion. There's always differences because other people interpret the character differently, and that's fine. But when you watch Menard in a Vance film, it's 95% me, and how I would react. I have a terrible temper that I keep in. Yeah, I try to keep it under control, like we all do. Um, I suffer with anxiety issues. I'm bipolar. Um, I lash out like everybody does. I am a human being, flawed, um, imperfect, and the character reflects that. And I brood a lot when I get upset. I shut down. I internalize a lot of things, which for my editors, I'm sure, they know exactly what that means. When Menard broods, he has those long drawn out pauses where they're like, oh God, we got to find music for this stare off shot, you know, um, but it's a lot of fun, um, to sit there and put yourself out there, um, on camera, um, and to see other people respond. Um, I see the mirror Menard as, this is a character. Obviously, I don't have a knife. I'm not out there stabbing people. But the Phantom character, that could very easily be me, the path not taken. Um, we all have that road in life, uh, that had the road taken us elsewhere, we could have been someone completely different. Um, I could have been that. Same thing with the Kelvin Menard. Most people don't know that I studied for 5 years to be a pastor. I obviously didn't take that path. Um, but, you know, just like Kelvin Menard took a different path when Emily died than regular Menard. And that was intentional when I wrote it that way. Because, I could have been much different than I turned out here. So I put those subtle differences in those characters, much as if I see my own life. And as you get older, you reflect on the choices you've made. So to me, I am very honored to get to play a character, or characters, um, that people enjoy to watch.
Basically, the character I created is just me in space. She's a pretty easygoing, laid back guy. Even the Mirror Universe version of my character is just me without enough sleep or coffee.
First, Nathan T. Cooper. I actually like this character, Nathan. Basically, somebody was full of confidence. Um, he didn't BS around. He got the job done. But at the same time, he had this arrogance about him. This, I guess, a snobbish attitude. And I was seeing that is like a lot of people in the world today. They think they're all that. And I actually could see myself one time as that character. I definitely could relate to it. Now, for Dr. Chilcott, I really didn't get a chance to get in depth of that character because it was a short, small scenes there. But who knows?
My characters have meant a lot to me. They have kind of become a little bit of who I am, and I've put a lot of myself into those characters. Just a lot of emotion and a lot of depth, and I've tried my best to kind of work with those things with them, and they just are just something I'll never forget. A part of me that I'll never forget, and a part of me that still kind of lives on, and something that I hope to do more of in the future, just to expand on these characters.
My character is very personal. Like I say, I've created him. I have a whole backstory for him, family, career, everything, how he got to the position where we first meet him in Vance's films. Crorath is an extension of me to a degree. I based his backstory on my own, his family life, his career on my own. And his relationship with Menard is similar to the relationship I had with Vance. So yeah, he's very much a part of me, even as I'm a part of him. And I am very protective and do care about how his adventures are told. And I don't think of him as a supporting character in Vance's films so much as an incidental character because he has his own stories and his own life. He is Menard's friend. And he does have life beyond Menard.
I think it's a challenge to be able to develop that character based on the story and bringing out those qualities that are necessary to promote the story and tell it in such a way that there is a sense of mystery and yet a sense of great entertainment, that you want to watch this character and see how he develops and grows and changes and how he tackles the great events in life.
Vance has ideas just a mile a minute. He's always thinking of new stuff. And I came into the movies not having any backstory, not even having a real personality in mind for Mitchell. I was just going to let his appearances, whatever his appearances ended up being, let that guide and shape him into a fully developed character. So Vance wrote him in a certain way based on how I delivered a line, and we just kind of fed off of each other. And I took inspiration from him, he took inspiration from me, and from that, Commander, now Captain Mitchell, has grown. He's taken over his own ship, the Armitage, named after a character in an H.P. Lovecraft story, which is a character that fights monsters. I saw Mitchell as someone who faced off against monsters or monstrous odds. But he's been shaped over the course of all of his different appearances, and that's been really fun to see what direction he's going to go. You never know. And even in some of the new films that have been coming out, Vance has been writing him in a more prominent role in different areas, and he's always growing. And it's been really fun to evolve that character into and to piece that together into a cohesive story arc.
I feel when I'm given a script for my character, I try to stick to the basic words, what's written in the script, but I'll play it in different ways with different inflections and different emotions, and basically just allow options to be given as far as um, how the editor or how the producer wants to do it. That's how I do it in my own films also. Usually I'll shoot different takes and do it the take in different ways, and then I'll kind of go back and pick the one that I think is right. So there's freedom, I think, for myself and basically other actors that I work with in terms of how we approach the character.
Well, I don't have a lot of freedom in playing Kirk because we all know who Kirk is and how he acts and what he does. So I try to keep as faithful as I can to what I see his character as. And the other half of that is me trying to act. And, you know, for sure I'm not a professional actor, but I'm going to try to do the best I can to be faithful to who I think Kirk is.
I feel like I've got a lot of freedom with my character, you know, to make him me, I guess. You know, there are times that definitely I've been pitched an idea, or I pitch an idea myself for the character, and you know, there's a little bit of tweaking that has to go on, you know, so everything fits into, you know, what's come before. And you know, personal experiences, getting the character to deal with some of the same things that, you know, you have dealt with or I have dealt with in my case. You know, I think the team that I work with definitely is open to that, and if there's, you know, like a good reason why I think my character should be acting a certain way or doing a certain thing, you know, if I can explain my reasoning behind that, you know, and it makes sense in the line of the story, you know, I've always been approved on things like that. I think there's a lot of freedom to play around and, like I said, make every character reflect who the actor is.
I feel I have a great deal of freedom in my character when I'm pitched an idea or a script. Ultimately, it's between you and the director, and Vance has always been very accommodating as far as making certain adjustments. Whatever is more comfortable that achieves the task. So I suggest that you engage in the creative process whenever you feel it's necessary and appropriate, and that you defend your character in all respects.
If it's your film, then you have the artistic freedom to pretty well develop the character the way that you see it. But if it's someone else's film, then you need to work closely with the director to bring out how they see the vision of that character.
I've worked for those directors that are very much micromanaging a character. You have to stick to the script. You can't change a word. You can't change anything. It's exactly how they have it. And to me, the performance comes across very wooden, not very lifelike, and I don't like that. It's not the way that I feel life is, and when you watch those type of performances in film, and especially fan films, it doesn't come across as lifelike. So whenever I send someone a script, I always tell them it's like a dance. You have to get me to where I'm at. My lines won't change, or if they do, it's going to be the gist of what I'm saying. So make sure what I say makes sense, because what I say is going to make sure that what you say makes sense. It's a back and forth. So you feel free to change what you want, but at the end of the day, what I say has to make sense. So I give enough freedom for my people to, if they kind of freeze, it's kind of like when you're doing a play, and if you stumble through a line, the audience doesn't know. So just go forward and work your way back through the line, and then get you to where you need to go, and bam, then they're to their line. And the audience is none the wiser, because they think it's all part of the play. And that's the way I feel it is with filming. Just do the line. And I always ask them to do it, 3 times if they can, 3 different ways. Therefore, I've got something to choose. But I always do it however you want, but get me to my line. Make sure I make sense. And sometimes I'll stress, hey, this specific thing has to be there. Please make sure it is there. But for the most part, I give a lot of freedom to my actors, because I know that they're doing it. We're not getting paid. We're not making any money. A lot of times we're taking time out from our family. We're taking time away from our job. We're taking personal time to do this. And, I'm not too critical. And I've found that it gives me a better performance, and it makes the characters come out more. It shows a lot more. It gives a better performance, I feel. And it makes everything just a little more realistic, and a little more fun for them, and then the next time we act, it takes a lot more pressure off them, because then it's, oh, I know how to do this. Yeah, it's no big deal, instead of, I'm kind of scared, I'm really scared, you don't have that, because it's old hat to them. And you have people who are first-time actors, who show up, do it the way we do it, and by the time they're done, they're like, that wasn't bad at all, and we have a lot of fun doing it. I am one of those people who, you can show up to a Vance, you can show up to a Vance show, and I'm the director. I'll read you your script too. You can never have read the script. I'll be holding the camera, and I'll be reading the script to you. I'll be like, blah 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 blah. Say it this way. Okay, action. And you'll say your line. We'll do it 3 times, and then I'll read the next line. Blah 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 blah. Action. And we'll do that the whole time. And I mean, I'm very easy to work with.
I believe that I have been given an exceptional amount of freedom. I've done directing on plays in the past, and I would say I probably would have not given that kind of freedom as that I have been given in the fan films. For me, it has been very much of a, here's the script, bring to the table what you have. And I have, and they took it just with grace. They took it and they said, great, we love this, and we moved on. It was really, really wonderful being able to come up with my own artistic expression, my own feelings, my own personality to the different characters.
Well, it's total freedom because you're a volunteer. Ha ha ha. That being said, Vance is really into dialogue and seeing if it makes sense for your characters. I think he recognizes that the actor has to have a buy-in to whatever stakes the character is going through. So I think he's gathered enough talent now that he knows where everyone fits in and the overall arc of his films. So it's really fun to have a say in where things are shaped.
It's very generous. Like, I'm not given too much freedom, and yet I'm not like, you have to do it this way. Like, it's a nice balance, I feel, where I have my choices, and then I have a lot of material to go off of as well, which is fantastic. And Vance is such a great writer when it comes to that. So I feel like I have lots of opportunities to really, add little bits of improv and really make it real. So make it come to life.
Vance has always been very collaborative with me on Mitchell's character arc. He definitely has ideas, places he wants to take Mitchell that would fit in with his overall mythology, but he always runs it by me first and asks if this is okay, and he is receptive when I say, no, that's not okay, or that's okay, but maybe we could do this, or we always work together on that. I don't feel I don't feel pressured. I don't feel like he's taken over my character. He's always been very, very collaborative in that way with me.
I don't know anyone else's experience with this, but I'm very grateful that Vance has allowed me to play Crowath my way and present him the way I see him and the way I created him. And I'm glad that he trusts me with my knowledge of Klingons, because I do have a lot of knowledge of Klingons.
Obviously, if the story goes against what's established with the character, I would question it. Obviously, the most important question is, why do you want my character to be in your fan film? I've always worked with people that allow me enough to question things and maybe change things if I feel it's not playing to my character's strengths. I will say that the vast majority of times I've cameoed in other people's films, I've had little issue. Or if I've questioned something, they've been very amenable to working with me. So I would say a great deal of freedom. I've never encountered a situation where I just flat out said no because they weren't flexible.
Since I've worked mostly with Vance, I have found a lot of freedom in expressing my thoughts concerning the script. And Vance is not a by-the-book type of person. As long as the story is told, Vance doesn't care if we don't stick exactly to the script word for word, as long as the story is told. And I enjoy that kind of freedom with my acting.
I believe I had quite a bit of freedom when it came to Nathan T. Cooper. Of course, Jeremy and Vance had a vision of this character already, so they relayed it to me how they seen this character, and then they kind of let me grow on that and expand that. I was watching Melbourne, I want to even slap myself a couple of times, you know? Of course, that's one of those characters I wish we could have gotten deeper into, because I'm sure he had a very interesting backstory, and I have a feeling things was going to get very interesting. Continue on. Yeah.
I am given a lot of latitude in how I portray Grissom. Vance has all the latitude in the world to portray Menard, and of course Gary and Randy as Denson and Brasso. They all have that. My crew, when I get it together, I've already asked them to start writing their bios and things like that, so we can get pitched ideas for episodes. I told them, take it, make it your own. That's what you have to do. Make that character your own.
I feel like I have plenty of freedom. I go based off how the script reads. And that's where I put my emotions to it the most. And sometimes Vance just hits it just right to where that script or that moment, it goes completely in tune with what's going on in my personal life. So these scripts are a part of me, in a sense. And it gave me a freedom to express myself in a positive manner. And that is honestly an amazing, uplifting feeling.
Who influenced my performance the most? I would say all the great actors of old, from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and so on. From the John Waynes, the Clint Eastwoods, the Jimmy Stewarts, the Burt Lancasters. I would say they definitely had an impression on me.
I would say that I sort of imagine how Toshiro Mifune, the great Japanese actor, might have approached the role and tried to sort of emulate the way I imagined that he would do it. But I also bring a bit of my own personality into the character as well. So I'm probably not as stern or overbearing as maybe Mifune might have played it. So I bring a little bit of humor into his personality as well, and that's more myself, I think.
Who influenced my performance the most as Admiral Van den Bosch? Well, that would be me. And I've been most heavily influenced by William Shatner, Adam West, Fred Gwynne. Take that out assortment and do it with it what you will.
Just great actors out there. Tom Hanks, you name it. There's a lot of people who I have been very respectful, and I try to imitate the things that they have suggested to me. One is Mike Bednar, who played Taggart in The Farragut. Holly Bednar, his wife, they were very instrumental in showing me acting techniques and things like that. I think basically working together in a group, I think everybody bounces off each other, and I think we try to emulate each other and interact. I think that's who's influenced me the most, is the people around me that I've worked with.
I would say probably my biggest influence would be Vance, the one that had cast me for the part and the one that played alongside me. He really influenced me in a great way. He showed me that it was okay to just be me. It was okay to bring to the table whatever I had, and very open to anything. He was very flexible. Although this was his creation, he just let me do what I believed I could and should do with it. Was very open to adjusting things, which he didn't have to. He could have said, just go ahead and do it like this, but he didn't. He was very open, very flexible, and it was really great.
Vance has had the biggest influence on my fan film acting. He's patient, he's fun, and I have found him to be a great teacher.
In the past, especially watching something like Next Gen, I feel that by and large Star Trek characters are very professional. And that translates to the Constar movies too. Everyone is in their suits, everyone is very yes sir, no sir, and I come at it from more of a Star Wars sensibility, more of a swashbuckling, more of a devil may care sort of attitude. So we did Wonderwall 2. That was actually, even though Scribbler was the first one that we talked about doing, Wonderwall 2 was actually the first movie that I filmed for Vance. And he sent me his footage, and Menard is a very intense, especially at that point in the character's life, where it's sort of towards the end of his life, he's very sullen, he's kind of sick, he's very tired, he's very worn. So when I read the script and decided to play it, I want to go the exact opposite way. I want to make Mitchell very full of life, very kind of casual, very sarcastic, just very, very open-faced and lots of expressions and very loud. And so in that sense, I think Vance really influenced the performance, just because in the beginning, I was just trying to be the opposite of how he played Menard at that stage in his life. But doing that, that's kind of been rolled into the fabric of who Mitchell is. So now Mitchell has sort of become this devil may care, a little more of a Han Solo type, just a little more reckless, a little more sarcastic, but all based on just that one performance of me trying not to be sickly and sour and sullen.
The character of Menard was heavily influenced from in the early days, he was influenced a lot from Dante in Clerks. If you watch the earlier works, especially when I was working on Michael's films, he's kind of walking around, he's kind of angry a little bit. Kind of like Dante in Clerks when he's like, I'm not even supposed to be here today, because I hadn't really established like what he was about. And it wasn't until I actually started doing my own films that he kind of started fleshing out the character, and then he started taking on attributes from my life and characteristics from my life. And The storylines were heavily influenced from the things that had happened in my life, because I really feel that you should write what you know. A lot of the brooding, kind of staring off into space type moments were influenced from Michael Keaton Batman, because I really enjoy those. Like if you go to Batman Returns, he's just kind of sitting there in his study and he's kind of doing, kind of staring off into space. And so if you notice that, like Menard does that a lot. But a lot of the things, Clark Kent from Smallville, because in my younger years, I always wore a red hoodie, and I always wore a blue T-shirt and a red hat. And then when Smallville came on, I was like, this dude stole my look. Oh, that's junk. And I grew up on a ranch when I was younger, so I related to that character some. So I allowed that to kind of creep into the character some. I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. So there were a lot of different, unintentionally superheroic themes that crept into the character. But I would say fatherhood elements came from my own personal experience when I became a father. That really impacted the storytelling that I wanted to go, and the legacy that I wanted to leave behind for my son, my greatest gift that I ever had.
I am taking quite a bit from all of the most famous Klingons out there. Your Robert O'Reilly, your J.G. Hertzler, your Michael Dorn, Tony Todd, John Colicos as Kur, Michael Ansara as Kang. Also, to a degree, W. Morgan Shepard as the Klingon Commandant of Rurapente in Star Trek 6. This is the Gulag at Rurapente! But I'm also thinking, I'm drawing on actor John Rhys-Davies, who played a character called Rodrigo in a miniseries called Shogun back 40 years or so ago, late 1970s. Who was very much a Klingon-esque character. I'm getting in, and you're going to get out of my way! You know, that kind of thing. Throw your weight around and be in charge. And also, to a degree, a influence, believe it or not, is Jackie Gleason as Ralph Cramden on The Honeymakers. I know what I'm doing here, Norton, and I'm going to do it. Hamina. You know, the arrogance, the confidence, whether you're right or wrong, you believe in yourself, and you might come across as a bit smug with it, but damn it, you're going full force ahead, and the consequences be damned, and you'll pay for it later. To me, that's Klingon through and through. I've read comics and books and the role-playing game. Mark Okren's thoughts on the matter. He wrote the Klingon Dictionary and a couple of follow-up books on Klingon philosophy and culture, and I put all that together in my head and get an idea of what Klingon is all about.
Honestly, classic Trek is why I got into acting in the first place. When I was 3 years old is when my sisters sat me down and had me watch pretty early runs of syndication. And I can't tell you how many old model kits of the landing party stuff I crushed playing Captain Kirk. It was little AMT Ertl kits where it had the phaser, the communicator, and tricorder, and I just destroyed them doing the shoulder rolls that Kirk did. And so, yeah. But if I were to say who Captain Lobato is modeled after, I would have to say there obviously is a little bit of Jim Kirk in there. But it's really more the Ben Sisko, Jonathan Archer, and Anson Mounts, Christopher Pike. I really see Lobato as being an extension of that thinking man's captain.
There is no one that has influenced my performance because ultimately it just comes from myself. I try very hard not to think of other things. As an example, William Shatner is one of my all-time favorite actors, and Captain Kirk's one of the greatest characters ever done. But having said that, I don't think of him when I play my version of a captain, because you're not going to do better than William Shatner, in my personal opinion. And also, I can't play my character as him. So I try not to think of other influences other than, do I believe what I'm saying? Do I believe that this is my character? So ultimately, I'm not influenced at all by anybody else other than myself, I guess, would be the bottom line.
William Shatner as James T. Kirk. Everybody knows who that is, so I try to emulate him as best I can, yet not do an impersonation or a parody. Just try to do enough Kirkisms so they think, oh, okay, I know who you are. And try to be faithful to what that character is. But I can't take it off in a new direction, because everyone would say, no. That's not what Kirk would do. That's not how he acts. And so I don't have a lot of elbow room. That's okay.
A lot of my life experiences, yeah, like lots of drawing upon those things. In terms of like an actor that's really influenced the experience, Hugh Laurie, lots of Hugh Laurie, specifically House. And yeah, I was like, you know, I want to make a character who, because Michael Burnham for Star Trek Discovery, what drives me crazy about her, she does everything for Starfleet, and I wanted to make a character that was very, very selfish, but at the same time still did, you know, good things, but he did it for him. So lots of House. Yeah, I'd say a little bit of Mariner as well if we're going down the Star Trek route. So,
Well, I will have to say it came from two people. First one, I will have to say Avery Brooks played Benjamin Sisko on Deep Space Nine. Benjamin Sisko was a commander full of confidence, but he didn't take no BS, and he was ready to do his duty no matter what. And he was did not hesitate to spoke his mind. But of course, my character was a little bit more than that for Nathan T. Cooper, is who I'm talking about. And the next one is Green Lantern. And a lot of the comic books, when Green Lantern got his ring, he thought he was all powerful and nothing could touch him, and he was all that. He thought he was the top dog. And pretty much that's the way Nathan T. Cooper was with the Melbourne. When he got the Melbourne, he thought like, yeah, I got a badass ship right here. I'm ready to go out and kick some butt and nobody can't touch me. That's right, we're going to go out and take names. But, you know, of course, that didn't how exactly it turned out. Same way with Green Lantern. But Hal Jordan had that smug attitude, and pretty much how I wanted Nathan T. Cooper be portrayed, and which I'm glad he did, because I read some of the comments. I mean, after watching it, I even wanted to smack myself. I just wish we could have had expanded that a little bit more. But, you know, that's the way it goes. And as for my other character, Dr. Chilcott, I really didn't get a chance to expand on his character. Not that much right there. But it's interesting. No telling how he would have turned out.
There are moments in each one of these films where I could look at it and think, oh, yeah, I like what I did there. Otherwise, it's actually difficult for me to look at myself.
I have lots of favorites, but I would say it's the one that you're working on, because I think it's an honor to be asked to be in someone else's film. That really is an honor.
They're all fun just acting and making films is fun for me. And I really don't think it makes that much difference. Um, I'm always up for it, and it's always fun and rewarding, and I appreciate being asked to do it.
My favorite film in the Vance universe that I was part of was a short film called Between You and Me. That's, obviously because I'm in it. But I think Vance came up with a very beautiful script. There was a lot of nice dialogue there, and a chance to explore the character and add a little depth to his backstory.
Well, my favorite film would have to be The 11th Hour. There's a lot of Band and Boss good bits in there, but also the film itself is just incredibly strong. It's a huge space battle that is just handled so well, directed so well, executed so well. It's a tour de force, probably Vance's best film that I've seen. And I think a film that is going to be very good, that you haven't seen yet, that has not played yet as far as I know, is Mavericks. And if you want to see some really good stuff with Van and Boss, I suggest you see that film when it comes out. I have very high hopes for it.
I guess my favorite film has to be Haunted, because that is, the last film that I did. I'm going to be enjoying a lot more. In all truth, I'm excited about being back. I'm excited about doing the Constar episodes that I've done. And I'm excited about doing Dreadnought again. And I'm even more excited about getting my Crossroads up and running.
My favorite Constar film that I have been a part of has got to be the first one that I was ever in, and that was the one called The Mind's Eye. That's the one that introduced me to the world of acting and fan films. It's also the one that got me hooked on working with Vance, too.
What's the favorite film I've been a part of? That's easy. The Rise of the Tribbles. It was fun playing with something canon-esque. It was fun playing with the Tribbles. I did a bit of improv when I did the film because I had a blue Tribble. And I felt, I don't know why, I felt the need to get silly with it. And Vance stuck it onto the end of his film.
The Trouble. He is blue. He is such a meaningless existence. He eats, he eats, he eats, he breeds, and someday he dies. Let us hope that we can find more meaning in life than he has.
And it's fun. And it was a fun role. It was a fun film. It's comedic in nature. And I'm a comedian at heart.
The Last Word, I believe that was the name of it, where Ruiz is telling the story of how he became disillusioned with Menard, and he was the one that set the computer program Crying Wolf to do what it did. I'm trying to avoid spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen that. To me, I feel that gave my character a lot of depth. It definitely provided his motivation for what he did and why he did it. My second favorite, is it 1,000 Lies or something like that? It's where I'm getting questioned by a character named Sanders who's trying to figure out what's going on with Menard and get into a little bit of history of why I did what I did and why I felt that was necessary. again, because it just builds that backstory, it builds that depth to my character, in giving motivation of why he did what he did and how he did it.
I feel as an actor, my favorite film is probably Menard. It's the origin story of uh, Eric and Emily's relationship. This is the foundation that the character is based on, and it's a 6-minute film, or 6 minute and some change. But it's a very simple film, and it tells the story of Eric and Emily through their lives. 3 years was the amount of years that I had them together. In the 4 minutes that you get with her, it's very heartbreaking. When I opened up the transporter room door and I have to yell no, it broke my heart. Because all I could think about was my wife. How much love I had for her. Like, this is the first time that I had met Yava. Most people, I always give a lot of credit to Yava. She's a wonderful actress, and she's been a great personal friend of the family for years now. In a lot of regards, I do think of her like a sister. But I do get that. I do get that question, like, what does your wife think of Emily? And I'm like, nothing. Like, they get along famously. In fact, I think my wife likes Yava more than she likes me. And the lady who was supposed to be Emily had canceled a few days before we got to set, so I didn't have anybody to play this part. And to me, this is one of the reasons why, like, this film in particular is one of the reasons why I went to go shoot this film. I, in fact, almost canceled the shoot just because the lady had canceled. But Yava was a pleasant surprise. The one reservation she had, and I'll never forget, she was like, she was like, there's not going to be any kissing or anything, is there? And I was like, no. Because one, my son will eventually watch these films, and I don't expect him to see me ever kiss anybody except his mama. So, no. And I feel if I have to tell a story that requires me to kiss somebody to show affection, then I've failed as a filmmaker. So no, I will not have that in my film. So you don't have to worry. And she was like, okay, I trust you. Let's do this. And I have to admit, I respected her a lot for that. Because that told me that she had the same principles as I did. Because she's also married and has 2 kids. And she's a Christian woman. And I knew the principles that she had for her as a person, and I respected the hell out of her for that. When I see that episode, I don't see me and Yava. I see Eric and Emily, and that is a true and rare gift, when you can forget about yourself and the other actor, and you see those characters as characters. And at the end of hallway scene, when her and I are walking, and she's doing the voiceover, the kind of goodbye letter to Eric, it is, you can see the characters in love. They're so happy. Oh, it's so heartbreaking, and it's exactly how I wanted it. But when you watch the behind the scenes, her and I are honestly laughing, between each other. We're being very caught up in the moment, and we're being so sweet with each other, but we're really just talking about diaper rash, and just and it's the biggest inside joke between us. Like, every time I walk down that hallway, no matter what set I'm on, I'm always thinking about diaper rash. And I always think about that moment. The simplicity of the story works on so many levels, and it makes me fall in love with the characters, and I think it works. You can like Star Trek and enjoy it. You can hate Star Trek and enjoy it. You can be a fan of just character stories and enjoy it. You can hate romance stories and enjoy it. It's just a relatable story. So as an actor, that that is still my go-to film to be like, hey, even if you hate my films, watch this. Tell me if you enjoy it. As a producer, I would say my favorite film is The 11th Hour. This is the top of our story. Everything from this point on goes downhill, and it's, this is it. This is the top of the mountain. Um, and you had so many characters that were, if you hadn't if you hadn't seen all the films, they're just characters that are in the story. If you had seen all the films, then you know who the characters are that die or get electrocuted or you know uh, show up at the end, or like, there's so many obscure characters, from the Cardassian that shows up at the very, at the beginning. He's the one that finds Eobard, or helps find Eobard. To the Klingon at the end, the Krorath, to the one that helps Krorath, he's the guy that was on the Lexington. To the Maquis people, all the Maquis that had abandoned Menard and in the different various positions at one point, like all of those Maquis that had abandoned their posts at one time, all of them come up, and they are the ones that help the Constar make it. They're the ones that help the ships get through, even though most of them don't make it. um, you know uh, everything had culminated to that point. You see the Odyssey, you see the Destiny, you see the Artemage, you see the Smithfield, you see of course the Constar, our USS Odyssey, which is a Galaxy class dreadnought, or Galaxy X. I wanted the Jum'Hadar ship to crash into that third warp nacelle, and for the nacelle to kind of blast off. I didn't want it to be destroyed. I didn't want the ship to be destroyed because I didn't want history repeating itself. But I wanted that to be my nod to, okay, last time they took out the Odyssey, this time they're going to take it out again in its own way. And the whole point of the episode was all of these little things in the series where these obscure characters who at one point didn't really matter, now they matter. And if it wasn't for them being here, because originally we were told that we lose this battle. Janessa Mitchell, like, she's from an alternate future, and she's seen that. Like, she's seen that we've lost. She knows. So she's here. She's here to make sure that we win. I really wanted to show that for all the people out there who think that their lives don't matter, you can't say that, because at one point or another, all of these characters in this film were irrelevant. We didn't think they mattered. We never know our moment in history until we're faced with it. And that was getting all these performances from people. As a director, and I loved the fact that I wanted a shot of the bulb above the bridge. We saw it in the cage, it coming down through the top of the glass looking at the bridge. And I wanted this to be the opposite. I wanted to look, if we're sitting there and we look above us and we see the battle going above us, that's got to be frightening as hell. And it worked, setting the camera there stationary and just letting the editor go to town and kind of do his own thing. But this is something that's done on no budget. Something we hadn't seen before. It came out beautifully. So not only did we add to the Constar Chronicles with this, but we added to Star Trek history, because it adds to that battle. It gives us a reason to have the Constar be a part of history.
Oh, it's really hard to pick a favorite film I've been a part of. I think the Menard was probably my favorite because it was the first one I really got a part in, and one that I got to really, really put myself into, and I had people that I got to work with that really, really had the heart for it, the same as I did. But each of the ones following, whether I was that character, Emily or Mikkel, have really been rewarding. But my second favorite would definitely be the 11th hour, where I was able to be the captain of the ship. And let me tell you, sitting in the captain's chair is golden.
I loved the heat of the moment. There was so much backstory and foreshadowing there that it was a challenge to convey all of this in subtext. It was just an absolute ton of fun. So yeah, in the heat of the moment.
Usually the most recent film is my favorite. So right now I'm working on Unsteady. I find as I get more and more into the films, the more I become familiar with not just my own character, but other people's characters as well. And I feel like Unsteady, I've really come to know Sanders, and I've come to know a lot of the other characters. So I'm really, really enjoying Unsteady.
The movies that stick out the most to me are The Scribbler, because again, that's the first one that I was brought in to contribute to edit. It was just as much about Vance and his son Royce as it was about Menard and his son Eobard. So I was trying to give Vance a gift to celebrate fatherhood and his relationship with his son. I most recently have just finished editing Gods and Monsters. I am really happy with how that turned out. There was a lot of, again, going back to challenges, there were a lot of challenges, a lot of green screen, and a lot of new CGI, and it had to have a lot of dramatic weight to it, be exciting, be funny, be touching. So, and I was really proud of how that turned out. I felt there was a lot of emotion and excitement and drama packed into those two scenes. All Roads Lead to Home is very important to me. That's the first movie in the Constar Chronicles that I wrote and directed and starred and edited and all that. That was really exciting to me because Vance has almost his own genre of movie with the Combox movie. So with All Roads Lead to Home, I wanted to make a Combox movie, but to take it up a couple notches. And usually the Combox is designed to be a unifying tool. It brings in all these characters who we can't actually get into the same space. So I wanted to flip that and make a Combox movie that was divisive. In sort of the style of Rear Window. What if you have a Combox conversation and there is this horrible, dramatic event happening on the other end of the Combox, and the Combox is separating you guys, and you can't help them. All you can do is watch. All you can do is talk to them through it. So it was a way to just do a Combox movie, but to raise the stakes. Obviously, it means a lot to me because it's a very Captain Mitchell heavy movie, but it ties into Janessa Mitchell, who was a character that Vance had put in his earlier movies before he ever met me, before he ever knew about that I had a character named Mitchell. So it was totally retcon. We were taking two characters that have no history together prior to this movie and revealing that they have a very strong history together. And Mary Jane was the other actress in that, and she was incredible. I loved her performance. I loved what we were able to play off each other. Not being in the same room, I've never met her. We've never spoken on the phone or anything. We just sent footage in, but it gelled so well. So I'm really proud of All Roads Lead to Home too. Favorite films? I mean, everyone likes The 11th Hour. That's a great movie. I only had a small cameo on that. It was just a voiceover, so can't really say too much about that. But great movie, though.
It's always fun making these films because it's like a puzzle. You do your piece, and you wait to see how it's connected to the other pieces. So, I was thrilled. I really liked the end result. So I would say nothing but positive feelings seeing the final result.
I was awestruck by how it all came together, all the work we did, all the things that went on, and it came together in one end product, I guess. And it was always awesome to see how that all came together.
I was like, oh, wow. That's me? Really? Like, we did so many takes, but like that specific take flowed so great through the whole film, through the whole clip. and it was amazing. Like, I was like, oh my god, I can actually, I can actually act a little bit. It was nice. It made me pat myself on the shoulder, Like, I was like, high five, Amy. It made me proud, and it made me feel accomplished, and like, made me feel like I belonged.
Yeah, well, in reference to, I think the only film that I've appeared in that's been released so far, which was Much Afraid. Yeah, I enjoyed seeing the tense exchange between the Nagura character and Vance's Menard character, and I think it was written very well. It was edited well, and you could really cut the tension with a knife in that scene. So I thought it came out very well.
I've always been pleased with the outcome of the fan films and, how they've been put together. Like I said, to me, one of the parts that I enjoy is when I do the distance filming. Especially, I'll do a couple of different takes, about 3 or 4, and I'll change it up a little bit. I'll like sneak a little line in here or sneak this in there. It's always fun seeing which take actually makes it to the finished product, the finished film. I mean, I've actually had, my cats, they messed around, and I've been asked by Vance, he thought it was funny to include their noise making and stuff like that. They're playing around. It's always great to see how even a little mistake can sometimes be added in and make it like that much more real and realistic.
11th Hour was incredible, and it was everything I had hoped it would be, and the additional CGI and all the elements of the music added together just blends it into a perfect little movie. On a more general note, I'd like to note that a lot of times I have no idea what's going to happen in the bits that I play, because I don't always get all the information. So sometimes I'm surprised when I see myself show up on screen. So that's a lot of fun.
I think it's kind of like almost like the birth of a child in a sense. It's when you see your film for the first time, your dreams manifested on actual film from a script. I think it's just awe-inspiring. So that's what I was saying. I'm just awe-inspired because it takes a lot of work to translate that script and put it into a film where it's entertaining and enjoyable, and it's such a creation.
I'm always impressed with anything that we put out, and I'm always happy because even if it's not the most technologically advanced looking film, it's always something. And for some of the people that we have acting, it's their first time and they're happy. And I always feel like the stories that we put out, I always feel like they're needed. There's a reason we put out the story, and the story impacts somebody, or at some point will impact somebody. I never try to just put fluff out there, I always try to tell something that adds to the tapestry of what we've done, add for character. I enjoyed that aspect of the filmmaking, and it's just wonderful to see that we've been able to do that. So I feel very blessed.
It's very rewarding to see it come together. We did one that was Too Long a Sacrifice, where Captain Mitchell has this interaction with Nero from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. I've filmed myself in front of green screen before, but I usually pawn it off on someone else to deal with it. So that was my first time to film myself in green screen, edit it, do all the keying myself. We had a digital set. It was there's a lot of complicated visual effects in that. And I was really happy to see it come together. I thought that it turned out really well given the challenges, and I was excited about that one.
I can tell you one moment that I had that I really liked. It was in Constar's Requiem. And it's the first shot when you first see me as Kirk appear. And the editors, they are Greg Mitchell and Jason Spriggs. One of them, or both of them, decided to linger on the shot of me for like the audience recognition. Like, hey, that's Kirk, right? So they stayed on me a real long time. And then Adam Mullen, the composer, he made this sweeping epic moment of music score. The kind of stuff, the editing and the music is the kind of stuff if you actually had Kirk there. And the way they put that all together, I looked at it and like, wow, that's what you would do for Kirk. That's it. So that was like a real Kirk moment for me, and it made me feel really good. They made me look really good. Thank you, Vance.
My contributions are always edited into the mix with care and a degree of respect for my work, which I appreciate. It's always fun to see how my work fits into the overall picture.
It really is amazing when a film kind of comes together at the end. You film just little parts of it, and sometimes you know exactly what's going on, and sometimes you're questioning a little bit, but in the end it always just comes out so amazing. It's a beautiful story, and I have been personally shocked at times when I saw the final results. I couldn't believe what an epic thing I was a part of until seeing the end.
Vance just gives us sides, which means he doesn't give us an entire script. He gives us our lines, our part in the film. So, because it is just sides, I don't know the entire script, I don't know the entire story, I don't know what else is going to be happening in the film, who else is going to be in it. I'm pleased with what I see. I'm pleased with where the stories, the scripts are going. I'm always curious to find out what's going to be happening with Menard next. I've enjoyed not only what I've done, but the end products of all the films. I have compared him before to an Ed Wood or a Tim Burton, someone who is more interested in storytelling and character than in flash and flare. They don't look polished, maybe. They don't look 100% shiny and perfect, but they're good. They work. They're enjoyable. And that's the mark of a good writer. That's the mark of a good director. It's the mark of a good actor. To be invested in the character and the story, that's what's important, and I think that's what Vance brings out with his films.
Overall, I was very happy and very satisfied, and I loved it. And then, of course, when I play Dr. Chilcott for Breaking Free, it was great. I like it. I mean, it just put a smile on my face. But now, I do got to say one thing. There was a time where me, Brittany Wilson, and Vance, we went to, oh my gosh, Arkansas? Did we went there? Wow, I forgot where we went. But anyway, we went to did a little filming where I was supposed to be interviewing. And of course, this place didn't have no power, so we was running on generator and daylight, and time was running very short. So me and Brittany was sit there going over our lines, and we did the first take right there, and they had the camera on her, and no problem at all. No problem at all. My gosh, it's like oh, it's like perfect. Then they switch around and put a camera on me, and then they said there were people in the background talking. I like, oh my gosh. And I think this is where Vance yelled out, "Shut up!" Gosh, I wish we could have redone that whole thing over again and just kicked everybody out, but it was dark. That's one of those ones we can get rid of that one. I would not cry at all.
90% of people are not serious about their fan films, but I wanted to do this because it was Star Trek, and I wanted some more acting experience and whatnot, and to act passionate about something. But when I saw the film, I was like, holy cow, work went into this. A lot of work went into this, into writing and the post and everything like that. And then he actually had people comment and show support to the films, and I was like, I think I stumbled across a gold mine here. So it was really cool. It was really, really cool, and it made me feel a lot more confident about my acting decisions and how I'm able to do this my own way without an agent or anything like that.
Well, it's different than anything that I've ever done. So, when I've been on other sets before, it's always with other actors. So you're interacting, you're playing off of each other a little bit, you're feeding off the energy. But this is a lot like voice acting. And you have to trust the material because you get your stuff and you record your stuff. And you don't get that playback. So when I got to see how Vance had edited everything together, it made me grin. It really did make me grin. It's like the stories of Shatner and Montalban on the set of Star Trek II. They both gave amazing performances, but they were never on the set together at any point in any day. So they really had to trust the script and trust the other actors that they were going to give great performances, and it turned out great. What the process meant to me, seeing that first movie, was just how complete Vance was with his vision of the world for Constar.
Well, I'm always kind of flattered when I see the results of my films, because I'm amazed that I have the talented people that I have. I have people like Joey Benoist for CGI. I have people like Trey Narr doing editing a lot of the time, or Greg Mitchell, Lee Gartrell sometimes on CGI. I have Adam Mullen doing score. He does a wonderful job on my intro song. I have a lot of wonderful, talented people. And if I forget your name, forgive me. I have Jason Spriggs. A lot of times I'll call him up and be like, "Hey man, do you think we could do this effect?" And he's like, "Oh, that'll be great, man. Let's do it." Or Josh Irwin, he'll do an effect for me that I need. And again, these guys always do it, out of the kindness of their heart for me. Just because I'm like, "Hey man, I kind of need this. What do you think?" And they're wonderful people. People like Ray Tessie. People like Glenn Wolfe, Dan Reynolds. People like at the old Starbase, Scott Johnson, Richard Wells, or when it moved to Arkansas, Kent Edwards. There's been a lot of people that have helped me get to where I'm at. Amazing people. It's not ever been because I'm such a great filmmaker or because I'm such a genius filmmaker. Like those 108 productions that I've done has been because someone else has inspired, or someone else has been the helping hand. I talked about the 11th Hour. A lot of that has to do with Jason Spriggs' editing. It has to do with Kent Edwards was behind the camera on that one, helping me get what I needed for locking shots down. Glenn Wolfe, and Dan Reynolds hosted that. They allowed me to have the vision that I wanted to, but that was not. I mean, you can credit me, but I don't really deserve the credit, and that's one of the things that people don't realize. They write a script, and they write it bigger than what they can actually accomplish. That's one of the reasons why I always write my standards down here, and then if I can accomplish up here, great. Because I'm not that good. So these people make me look better than I actually am. So I'm always amazed when we're able to shoot it out of the park. George Kyan was a huge inspiration for me on working from home. Anyone that recognizes this, it's what used to sit behind me in my den, but very easy cardboard set, and that for the longest time was what I would use for my ready room. So for the longest time, you would see Menard just sitting in his ready room talking to people. Now I've got a little bit more space here in my den.
Are you having fun, Royce?
Yeah.
Are you excited to build a spaceship?
But that was inspired from George Kyan. Because I saw what he was doing, and I was like, man, I can do that. Things that are outside the box are usually the way to go. I don't have plywood. I don't have a huge area, but man, I can get cardboard. I can do it. I can do a George Kyan set.
My series is like any other series. There's an inherent value on continuing the Star Trek legacy. So there's value in that. Also, if you can be creative, informative, entertaining, there's value in that. If you write a story that resonates with people, there's value in that. And I've done episodes where people have written into me saying they were very emotionally affected by it, they can relate to it. And so you can't ask for anything more than that. So that would be my contribution to the fan film world, continuing Star Trek's legacy and hopefully entertaining people. That's really where it's at.
I think every filmmaker finds his niche in life, the type of films that he wants to write and produce, that special place where you feel you are bringing out something unique and different to the film world just through your stories and your storytelling. It's like Nature's Hunger, for example. Stories that I write that I think are imaginative and creative and will be entertaining to those out there. They'll be different. I think all filmmakers have their different drummer, and I hope I found mine.
Overall, I feel like I've made some pretty solid contributions to the fan film world. Probably Constar and my own productions have shown the fan film community that the new restrictions or guidelines for the Star Trek fan films do not mean that fan films can no longer be made or be entertaining. That's something Constar can be proud of.
My contribution to the fan film world, I believe, is a drop in the ocean. There are so many fan films out there. There are so many excellent characters. There are so many excellent people involved in fan films that I can't say that I feel like I have made a huge impact, although I have been greatly impacted myself by being a part of it.
In terms of the fan film world, I'm a very, very tiny piece. But when it comes to these films, these films are a nice blend of the thing I love is it's real people. Like, you can really get that. Like, it's not caricatures or anything like that. Everyone's playing a real down-to-earth person, which is great. And I feel like I'm portraying a person that's very similar to that. And you can tell all these characters have a life and a backstory. So it's great. And another cool thing is so there's a YouTube channel that does watch parties, and so I joined that watch party, and I was watching with them, and I commented something, and immediately people were like, "Hey, it's Sanders," and I'm like, that is the coolest feeling in the world. Like, I feel so welcomed, and so I feel a great deal of gratitude, I should say. So yeah, I'm really glad that I've jumped into this, and I've become a part of people's lives.
Well, I hope that I've given hope to those who like to be in a fan film, that I've added a certain amount of gravitas to whatever production that I'm a part of, and that they believe it, because I believe it, that people have hope for the future, and that they see that they can make a difference, that they can be a part of something bigger than themselves. That's what fan films are all about. It's about having fun. Seriously, I take my fun very seriously.
Well, working Starship Farragut, working Dreadnought Dominion, I was very much involved with it for quite a few years. Down in Georgia, then with the Dreadnought, and I'm very proud of the Dreadnought Dominion in starting that, and I'm very proud to see where they have taken her. And I look forward to many more years of working with them.
I'd like to think that with Vance's help, I've been able to bring to life a relatable character. I'd like to think that it's been entertaining, not just to myself and not just to the group of people that I get to film with, but to just a wider audience, that they're entertained by the stories, or that they can take something away from them, even if it's not just, some deep philosophical thing. Just sit there and see the whole arc of my character going from basically hopeless to being accepted, having a family, then making a couple of bad decisions, paying the consequences for that, but then ultimately being accepted back into that family. I'd like to hope that it'll inspire them, that, hey, it looks bad, it looks horrible in my life right now, but maybe if I just keep on going just for a little bit longer, maybe if I change my way of thinking just a little bit, maybe I can get back to what I used to have. Maybe the ones that I hurt, the ones that I lost, the ones that I love, will see and will actually come back.
What I think I've been able to do so far is to revive some of the old style or old school types of films involving Kirk and Sulu and Spock, and I've also been able to bring forth this character of Admiral Nagura, who was only mentioned in Star Trek the motion picture but never seen on screen. And it's been a lot of fun creating stories that have involved these characters. And I think the films that we're making at the moment probably appeal to a lot of fans who sort of miss the old school style Trek, especially those who enjoyed the original characters and their adventures. And I think maybe, hopefully in some way, we're fulfilling some kind of a need to see stories that involve these old characters that many of us are just so fond of.
Many of our films have a message, and it's reflective of what's going on with us or what we see going on in the world. For instance, I made a film called Look Forward to the Day, where Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are in a world where there's some sort of crisis going on and they can't physically be with one another, yet they still miss each other and they care. And that was reflective of the whole COVID-19 as we made this, I think, in the early stages of the lockdown of the pandemic. And it was a metaphor for what was going on with me and my friends. And people could see that and hopefully relate and maybe be reaffirmed somehow that yeah, we all feel the same way and we'll get through this. We just have to hang on a little longer.
I feel in some regard that it's kind of like in high school. I'm not very famous, but a lot of people know me. And that's how it was in high school. I'm not very popular, but everyone seems to know me. Um, when I first started fan films, um, a lot of people were kind of cutthroat. They had the mentality of, my fan film's going to be best. No, my fan film's going to be best. No, my fan film's going to be best. If I'm being honest, I think that I kind of helped cut a lot of that out. I'm very inclusive with my films. Um, Having other people star in my films and guest starring in other films. Like I've said before that it's kind of like the MCU of fan films. It's not uncommon for us now to all star in each other's films, um, which I think is a good thing because Star Trek is to see Cisco in Star Trek: The Next Generation or Picard in a Voyager. Um, technically that could happen. They encompass the same universe. So it makes sense for all of us to jump in each other's fan films when it's appropriate. Now technically you could make up new characters and be isolated from each other. But to me, it gives the fan film world um, a little bit of credibility when you can have this other admiral who's already established. um, it gives them exposure. It gives you credibility. It gives the fans that credibility of, um, man, I know who that is. you know, I know, and it is like the MCU where if you know that Easter egg, you feel like you're in the know. If you don't, you're kind of like, wait, who's that? Oh, let me go look that up. And now it gets them interested in the film. It gets them interested in, what what was that series? I really like that acting style. Let me go check that out. And then it just gets more and more exposure, and it's just it kind of blossoms out and then blossoms out and blossoms out. And to me that's a good thing. um, Whereas when I first got into fan films, it was very much like, no, 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 it's all about me. I've got to have the best actors. I've got to have professional people. I've got to have, and to me that never really interested me. And when I got into fan films, it very much was like, you're the fat guy. We don't want you in this. Don't bother with. Don't bother. We don't want you. And Michael was the first one that gave me a shot. Anytime someone has asked, if they can help, I always try. I can't always do it, but I always try to put them in a film, which is one reason why you always see so many Combox adventures. Because I always try to put them in a film. Because even people around all the way around the world, it puts them in a film. But I think that's also smart marketing because it then it's a very grassroots way to grab fans, because they're going to tell their friends, hey, I was in a film, go check it out. And that's a subscriber or two, possible fan. We do have the most vocal audience, the most loyal, because we do try to include everybody. And that goes from content creators to an audience. If you have that desire to come shoot, with or without a uniform. If you don't have a uniform, we'll just have you be a civilian sending a distress call. We do work around you and your limitations. So I think the one thing I've shown and contributed is showing that any person with a cell phone can make a film. It's very easy to do if you're determined. And you just sit there and stay focused. You write within your limitations. If you don't have the means to do a starship or a green screen, make an away mission. You know, make your series about a crashed starship that, hey, I've got a torn uniform. Okay, make your uniform, you're wrecked and you're a Starfleet crew that's wrecked. But I think that's the one thing that I've contributed to, showing that anybody can do what I do. And fail upwards. See what works and see what doesn't, and then go make a better film. And I try to say that without ego, because again, there's other people that have that same spirit that I have. So we might have gotten there without me. But I do know that that's something that I've added to the community.
I definitely think that the Constar Chronicles have made a huge impact in the fan film world by just being a hub. Menard is sort of a character that everyone in every fan film seems to know, that they all can kind of rally around him, and he's sort of this central, I don't want to say central figure, but he's a common thread. He's a common bond. All these other characters, these other series, they all have a Menard story. Like, oh, I remember when Menard did this. I remember when Menard did that. And that's cool that he is that sort of hub for all these different mythologies.
It's amazing if you watch the progression of where he started up to where he's at now, and how much storytelling he was able to do in so many different complex ways.
Well, I'd like to think that my work on Constar has made it a little bit easier for Vance to tell his story. I think it's fun to think that I've contributed to such an expansive story, because really there's just a ton of stuff out there. Really, between him and Intrepid and Dominion and Farragut, they have so many films out there. It's an honor to be part of it, really. I think that Lobato has a very definite chunk of the Phantom story to tell, so I think it's an honor.
I know people who watch Vance's films have enjoyed what I've done. I have recreated the character for an audio adventure that was written and produced and directed by Adam Mullen, who does editing on Vance's films and does music of some of Vance's films. I should like to think that I tried to keep some sort of connection to other fan films. The uniform, the costume that I've worn in his films, I bought from the woman who was the costumer for the Star Trek New Voyages / Phase 2 series that James Cawley was producing up in Ticonderoga, New York. So my Klingon looks like the Klingons that appear in that series of films. I do know there are some people who watch my performances in Vance's as Crowath and come back and say, that is a Klingon. That is what Klingons are. That is a definitive Klingon for me. And I appreciate that. I really do. That's what I'm striving for.
I think that I've been able to show people that it's fun to do, and it gives me a chance to participate in some great storytelling, and it's a very neat way to deal with the rest of the world, especially now with COVID virus going around.
I feel I have not done enough, basically. But of course, that's just me being selfish, because I just want more and more and more. And just wishing I had a group of people here, and also be able to put up some kind of sets where it doesn't, I mean, anything right there to put something together here. I would love to do that. I would love to maybe to continue the adventures of Dr. Chilcott, or maybe some of the untold stories of Nathan T. Cooper or something. But all I can say that if they need me there, and if it's very possible, I will be there if they ever need me. I mean, I live in Alabama, and I drove all the way up to Salt Lake City, Utah to help our friend Carly do a music video. And I drove all the way to Laurelwood Canyons that work on the Star Trek Renegades. So if that doesn't show how committed I am and willing to do this, I mean, I don't know what would. So I feel like I hadn't contributed enough yet. I think there's more I can do.
In discussing Vance Major, where I would begin, despite the many Star Trek fan films that he has completed, I would say that another admirable quality that I have about Vance is the fact that he is a wonderful father. And he's also a great husband. The thing I admire about Vance's films is the fact that he has brought the community closer to being together. I would celebrate Vance's films because of the fact that he has included those people who may not have ever had the chance to be in a film. When I think about Star Trek, I think about that future where we all are included. No one has to be alone. No one has to be depressed, because we'll live in a future where everybody helps everybody. And despite all the great stories that Vance has done in his films, what stands out to me the very most is the fact that he has inclusion in all his films. All you have to do is ask, and Vance finds a place for you. You've done some wonderful stories, Vance. You've hit the hearts of the human condition, you've explored it, and you have helped us to understand. Sometimes your films show us a part of ourselves that we may have forgotten that existed. That's one of the best qualities of Star Trek, to explore what makes us human beings. I admire your work. I admire your films. I admire your imagination. I admire the fact that you include everyone. And I admire the fact that you have the spirit to reach out and bring all those fan filmmakers, myself included, into a world where we can all be included and we can all share part of ourselves. You reach out and you reach the better part of people, and that's a quality that you should be very proud of. And I'm very proud of you myself. I am overjoyed that I reached out to ask you to play the engineer on Starship Valiant, because you have opened up a world that has brought so many fans into the universe, and for that, I'll always will admire you.
What's amazing is the connection that Vance has built among people in the fan community. He acts in many ways as a nexus between fan filmmakers. Vance opened up his filmmaking to other filmmakers to write and direct episodes, produce episodes. He's like, you know, look, I don't have to do everything. I don't have that ego. If you want to write an episode, hey, if it's a good story, let's do it. If you want to direct an episode, you want to edit, whatever you want to do. You know, he was always open to bringing people in and giving them that opportunity. And because Vance didn't have very high standards, you know, you leave a cord in the back and you can see it, who cares, you know. It was a wonderful on-ramp for filmmakers to come in and to just have some fun, get a Star Trek fan film credit under your belt. So in a lot of ways, Vance and his Constar series was, you know, just a training ground, sort of an academy, a Starfleet academy. Most Star Trek fan filmmakers aren't looking for a career in this. You know, we want to play. We want to play in the sandbox. And, you know, Vance was there with all the toys saying, go ahead. Here's the sandbox. Here's the toys. Have some fun. He's told all these amazing stories. He's united all of these fan filmmakers in crossovers and cameo appearances. And, you know, in addition to that, his Pizza Roll Diaries, where he interviewed fan filmmakers, you know, that was so much fun. And he touched the fan film community. He inspired the fan film community. He did so much more than just make a fan series. That that is just such a special thing that I want to take a moment to just say thank you, Vance. Thank you for everything you've done, not just for yourself and your fan series, but for the entire community.
I think that Vance has made a mark on fan films like almost no other person has or no other person could, because he really was the person that proved to everybody that anyone could do it. And he put so much heart and so much passion into his fan films. And he just did what made him happy. And he kept making films and he kept making films and kept making films. And then after a while, he became a great filmmaker. He made compelling, well-told stories. It's kind of the same thing as his hero, George Cayenne, in that, you know, George will do the lowest budget Star Trek fan film you can imagine, but he tells like a really amazing story. And that's what Vance was able to do too, is he was able to tell great stories about great characters. And it's really an amazing thing. And so many other fan filmmakers have branched out of his tree. I mean, you can count me as one of those people. I would have never made a fan film if it weren't for Vance. And now he's got so many other people doing it. He's got Greg Mitchell doing it. He's got Raincross. He's got, you know, Frank Parker back in the game. So it's like, there are so many of us who have made this into something that brings so much joy and happiness to our lives. And we have Vance to thank for that. And he's probably the most unique fan filmmaker in our community. And he's certainly made the most films. So I would say that it wouldn't be the same without him, that he's had more of an impact on the fan film community than probably he could ever realize. And you're able to make friends. You know, you're able to meet people you never would have otherwise, people all over the world, and make really wonderful, unique friends because of this.
Every so often, something which I've grown to appreciate happens. I'll get a very late night message from Vance, and it's just kind of time to talk, a little question mark. And they're the best conversations. They are the absolute best conversations. You know, we talk about script stuff. We talk about our kids. We talk about life. You know, it's a lot of fun to be able to bounce ideas and talk about things with Vance. But if you think that Vance keeps bankers hours, forget it.
Vance calls all the time with different ideas, and he just tells me all the behind the scenes stuff that's going on, and seeing the different footage, the raw footage that people send in, and we just have a good time just doing that. It's just fun to make movies with your friends, to kind of gel, to bounce ideas off of each other. It's just fun. So to this day, I don't know when this is going to air, but to this day, I've not actually met Vance. We've not been on set together. So that's gonna be cool to finally be there and to play off each other like that. I think that'll be a good time.
We got this really great opportunity through Alec to go out and be at Star Trek Las Vegas. And it was the most wonderful thing, you know, to drive across the country and go to the Star Trek convention out in Las Vegas and spend a whole week with somebody who had become such a close friend to me. And we got out there, and there are stages, you know, there's stage in one room, stage in another, but they're interviewing Star Trek people the whole time at this. They're interviewing everybody from actors like Shatner and, you know, Denise Crosby and whoever else to, you know, really important behind the scenes people like Mike Okuda and Doug Drexler and Rod Roddenberry. And what really struck me and what I told Vance was that even though he was a fan film actor, he was a Star Trek actor too. there being interviewed on the same stage as other Star Trek actors, that he had a part of the Star Trek universe, that he had his own corner of the Star Trek universe, that people watched his films, that they knew who his character was, that they knew who he was. People all over the world, all over the country that would have never known him otherwise, knew who he was because of fan films. It was the same for me, but the greatest part of it, I think, was that we got to share that stage together, that we got to go on stage together and be interviewed about the adventures that we had created in the Star Trek universe. And it was probably the neatest moment of the entire year, was, to be backstage with such a close friend, with our film screening right there in Las Vegas at the Star Trek convention, and to be doing it with such a close friend, to go on stage together. It was really, really special.
If a person was interested in being involved in Star Trek fan films, I would say,
go for it.
Do it.
I say jumps to it.
Just go and do it.
Let's go do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Because fan films are a love letter to whatever fandom you have an affinity for. I mean, there's fan films for every possible fandom out there. So it's really a personal love letter to whatever you hold dear. So don't let anybody tell you that the quality of your film is great or non-great a performance. Look, it's a fan film. You should never be ashamed of whatever you love.
Contact Vance Major at Constar Chronicles or one of the showrunners at almost any fan film and let them know that you're interested. Most likely, if they are gearing up for a shoot, they will send you a script and ask you to film a short video audition. Then, most likely, if you can make it to the set when they are filming, you can be in their film. If you want to be an extra or on the crew, there may not even be any sort of an audition. Another option is just to do your own fan film. Seriously, these days all it takes is a camera, some editing software, and a good story to tell.
You can contact someone who is already involved in making Star Trek fan films and ask if you can participate in some way. Or if you're a little bit more ambitious, maybe get together with your own friends and create your own stories. Basically, there's no limit. You decide what level of participation you want to be involved in and how you want to do it, and just go for it.
Make a fan film. Experience it for yourself. Write a script, grab a camera, get some actors, and just do it. They say that 95% of fan films that are planned never get made. And you wonder why.
It doesn't matter if you have a cell phone. It doesn't matter if you have a whole production crew. Just go do it. Do it because you love it. Don't keep anyone from, telling you no or that you can't. Just go do it. It doesn't matter what you have.
Be open-minded, everything, just creative, and be inspired. Give it your own spin, It's okay. And if you mess up, that's okay too. At least you tried something new.
Watch other fan films that have already been produced. Watch those films, see who's participating in them. Most of the people in the fan film community are awesome people. Reach out to them, message them. Leave a comment on the YouTube video of, hey, I've got this great idea, or I'd like to see if I could get a part in an upcoming fan film or something. If you've got the heart to do it and the desire to do it, just reach out to one of the people that has either acted in them or produces them or, helps with the music or something. Because most people, like I said, that are in the fan film community want to just have fun. And part of that fun is helping someone else join into the group?
Josh Irwin, George Cayenne, Jose Sampita, myself, Scott Johnson, Glenn Wolfe, Ray Tessie, David Chang, Nick Cook, Robert Hurd. There's plenty of people who are more than happy to point you in the right direction. Gary Davis. There's a laundry list of people who are more than happy and friendly. If they can't personally help you, they can at least point you in the right direction. I know for me, there's plenty of times where I don't have what I need for something, and I go to those people. I'm like, hey, do you know how I can attain this? And they're like, oh yeah, let me check with some of my friends. Oh, here you go. And that's the best way to get into fan films, whether it's acting or in front of the camera or behind the camera, or you can do it like I do, fail upward. When I was interested in doing the Constar, I just was a guy with a camera, and I wanted a very simple film. I didn't know editing, so I didn't do that. I didn't know lighting, so I just used what I had available to me. And I made a very simple film with a very simple idea. A guy recording a message to a friend on the bridge of a ship. So I recorded it, put it on my YouTube, and people responded to it. What I would recommend, since most people don't have access to a bridge, what I would recommend is, go buy a uniform. They're $20, $30 on eBay. Buy a phaser, tricorder. Those are fairly cheap. And go do an away mission. Slacks at Walmart are like $10. I wouldn't go buy the fancy schmancy boots. I would go buy, a nice pair of El Cheapo black shoes. Because nobody, at the end of the day, nobody's really going to notice that. They're not really paying attention to your pants. And I know you're going to have some people who nitpick, but I mean, this early in the stage of filming, nobody's really going to pay attention to that. And if they do, you don't really need them as fans. Again, you're making the film for you. Use what's available to you. Work on your budget. Money's very tight for most people these days, so work within your means. Don't buy something if you don't have to. Don't spend if you don't need to. Most people aren't going to be looking at your feet. They're going to be looking at, oh, okay, cool, guy in a Star Trek, Starfleet outfit, great, cool, got it. And they're that far away from a distance. If you do your establishing shot, they're not going to care. So you got your uniform, you got your phaser, you got your tricorder, you're on a planet. Now, what story do you want to tell? Are you finding someone from a crashed Starfleet, ship? Are you part of a landing party and you're hallucinating and you're telling an internal monologue story? Are you doing a voiceover type story? Are you finding the inhabitants of a planet? What story do you want to tell? What story needs to be told? What story is inside you that's been building so long that you feel that you need to get out? And that's what you need to go tell. Most people want to be Captain Kirk or Mr. Spock or and then that's, don't be that. Go be you. Go be an original character. Go stand out. Most people, they don't realize that they're more interesting than what is on TV. So go be you, and be you 110%.
Try to play as close to your true self as possible, and you can't go wrong. There's nobody better at being you than you. So if you're an amateur and you're cast in a production, hopefully they've gone and made your character a part of you, something that is easily reflectable off of you. Just draw on yourself. You are the best, soundest reality that you could bring to that character is a piece of you.
Make the character your own. Own it. You have the script in front of you. If you deliver it word by word, it may not capture what you're thinking. Don't be afraid to improvise. Don't be afraid to come out and actually give the best performance you can, because you are that character.
You don't need acting experience. Just have a love for whatever. It doesn't even have to be Star Trek. And now we all have cameras, which is great. You can make your own. Start small and build your way up. Like, that's how I started. That's how Vance started. So absolutely do it. You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Go.
Find the people that can help you be better than what you've presented before. But what you have available to you is really all you need to start off with. And then if you want to do simple editing that you can't do, reach out to those who've done it, and they're more than happy to help you out if they can. CGI wise, you may not be able to get the CGI, but grabbing a model starship and putting it in front of a starfield, it may not be the best effect, but just starting out, it's simple, it's easy, it's a cheap effect, but it works. And then I guarantee after a couple of films and getting noticed, someone's going to be like, hey, he's trying. You know what? Come work with me, because they pick up on that, especially those of us who see that someone's trying, they want to work together. The way the fan film community is now, for the most part, we want to work together with people. We find that type of stuff endearing. And, then you'll acquire CGI stuff, and you'll see just how much you can progress very quickly. And I guarantee after a couple of films, you'll look back at your earlier work and you'll be like, man, how far I've come. But it's very easy to work at this type of stuff and get far pretty quickly if you just put your best foot forward. And don't be afraid to fail at making some films, because I've made some bad films, that I felt needed to be told, and just didn't turn out quite the way I thought they would. So don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to reach out.
Well, if you want to be in a Vance Major fan film, find him on Facebook. It's the easiest thing in the world. He will put anyone in his movie. You don't ever have to wonder, could I ever be in a Star Trek fan film? You can, and it's easy. You don't have to have a costume, or CGI, or a fancy set, or props. He will put you in somewhere. He will give you a voice. He will make a character just for you.
Definitely be in a fan film. They are excellent. They become a part of you. It's entering a new world, and entering a world that you love if it's the kind of films that you love. I have enjoyed every moment, and I wasn't sure about it at first when I joined, but I would say even if you might be interested, do it. It is an amazing experience.
Do it. You'll be glad you did. It's a fun form of expression. You get to hang out with your friends, and if you've got something to say it. And don't worry about the quality of your costume or your sets or your effects, any of that stuff, because it's yours. And, if someone's going to be critical, the hell with them, because where's their movie? In choosing to do it, to either to make it or to be in one, you had the guts to actually do it. And that's great. So I say go for it.
Be prepared to work hard and to have fun. You don't need to be familiar with the main subject matter, like knowing all about Star Trek. I know somebody that I count as a dear friend. She is not a Star Trek fan, but I've worked with her in Star Trek, and she did a wonderful job, I thought. Now, some other advice would be prepared to have the time of your life and a lot of fun.
No fame, glory, or money. It's going to have to be for the love of Star Trek. And I suggest you do it. It's highly rewarding in that way. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to put yourself out. There'll be no green rooms. But, hey, as long as you're having fun, keep on doing it.
Do it because you have a love for it. Okay, if you don't have a love for it, then you really should not even be doing it at all. Don't be doing it just because you can do it. And make sure you plan things out first Just don't jump in there and try to play it by ear and try to make it up as you go. Don't rush it. Take your time. Go over the story and don't worry about it if you don't got like the fancy costumes or the fancy props for the sets or anything like that, where you're not good at green screen or anything. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you have a love for Star Trek and you want to do it, I say do it right there. Just make sure you have a good story, because that's what it really comes down to. That's what it really comes down to.
Just take your phone with the camera in it and start filming. And make a Star Trek film. Don't be afraid. I mean, if you have a story to tell, if you have a character that wants to come out and make a statement, just do it. You don't need to wait for a Vance or a Jim Colley or anyone else to get a hold of you and say, would you please be in my Star Trek film? Just make it. And don't worry that it doesn't look bright and shiny and perfect. As long as you have your head in it and your heart in it, as long as you're not just putting on a costume to say, I'm a Star Trek fan, gee, look at me, I like Star Trek, as long as you're trying to say something about, weighty issues, because you can put on a Star Wars uniform, you can put on a Flash Gordon costume, you could put on a myriad of different franchise costuming and tell a story. But Star Trek is Star Trek. And it is its own special, unique thing that has made it last for more than 50 years now. If you want to be in a fan film and you do have something to say that is uniquely Star Trek, then go for it. And don't worry about having someone else get a hold of you, or don't worry about calling someone and saying, could I please be in? Just do it. Just do it, and don't worry about it. And if your heart is there, your story is there, people will come, people will watch.
You're never going to find a greater opportunity to become part of a fan film than today. There are so many wonderful groups out there that are producing content, and usually I find they're very open to getting new people involved. And at the very least, you could always make your own. I would say get yourself a camera, write a simple script, start simple, and work your way up. And if you can't become part of another fan film group, make your own.
What would I say to someone that says that fan films aren't real Star Trek?
I would agree with them.
Them's fighting words.
Fan films are definitely real Star Trek.
Hell, we're making Star Trek.
Oh, I tell him I'm under no delusions. I'm no Jimmy Doohan.
Well, I would tell them that Star Trek to me isn't just characters or things that are a part of the official canon or world of the Star Trek franchise. It's all in the storytelling. Even the original series didn't stick to the official canon. I like the one thing that helps me is the Vulcan philosophy of IDIC, which is infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Well, even Star Trek has so many different ways to be told that you can't stick to one formula to tell the story. You've got to be able to explore. You've got to be able to dare to be different.
Star Trek fan films have a lot of heart. They're done for fun, usually, and that's sometimes lacking in bigger productions. When you do a fan film, you do it because you love the franchise and you want to play in that world. You wouldn't be making a fan film if you didn't love it. And they're just as much Trek as any of the official productions.
Look, I'm old enough to remember that there were fans that said that Star Trek The Next Generation wasn't real Star Trek, and then that DS9 wasn't Star Trek, and that Voyager wasn't Star Trek, the Enterprise wasn't Star Trek, and Discovery isn't Star Trek. And if someone doesn't like Constar, that's great. I mean, that's a long line of very, very good titles that have been said they weren't real Star Trek. And they don't need to watch it if they don't need to. There's plenty of content out there they can pick and choose, but it's all Trek. It's all Trek. And it's art, so it's really in the eyes of the beholder.
To me, it's more about the heart. Star Trek is always about the personal stories, in my opinion. It's a mirror of what's going on in reality. It's just kind of wrapped in a sci-fi cloth, so that people can understand what's going on, but not be immediately like slapped in the face, and hey, listen to this. A lot of the fan films that I've seen and I've been part of deal with that. They deal with very personal issues. Yes, there's ones that are just fun and silly and completely sci-fi. But I think at the heart that the Trek fan films are legit Trek, in my opinion.
I basically see real Trek as being the official Trek TV series and movies that are put out by the owners of the Star Trek copyright, namely CBS and Paramount. I think that what fan films are akin to what tribute bands are, where, for example, the Fab Four or other Beatles tribute bands are not the real Beatles, but what they're doing is they're paying tribute to the Beatles by dressing up as them, singing their songs, and trying to recreate their look and their sound as much as possible. And thereby they are showing their appreciation for what the Beatles do, and also provide enjoyment to those fans who also enjoy the Beatles. So I think that fan films are akin to that, in that we are able to emulate, in some sense, what the official Star Trek shows do, and we show our appreciation and enjoyment by creating these films, and hopefully those that view these films also will enjoy them as well.
Fan films are not real. I have no delusions about that. And what it can be is a not Star Trek, but something that sets right alongside it. And my Star Trek doesn't have to be your Star Trek. And that's what the movies are about, the series are about. That doesn't mean you can't be part of it, that you can't see yourself in that world, or some alternate world that you see. So I think the statement is irrelevant.
And I think that's a philosophical question, is on the basis of Star Trek itself. I would say make your own Star Trek. It seems that it's easy to criticize, but it's very difficult to make a film. And everybody has different visions. Just like ice cream, everybody has their own flavor. But until you produce a film, write it, direct it, cast out the people for it, make the sets, and do this thing, you really don't know what Star Trek is. But everybody has their own Star Trek, and that is the excitement.
Star Trek has gone through so many iterations. I don't think that Star Trek is Star Trek at this point. I think there's many rooms for debate on what Star Trek really is. But I think at the end of the day, it really boils down to personal taste. An idea of hope to the individual, if it brings you that hope and that sense of optimism for a future. It's the same way where if you're watching a play of of Romeo and Juliet. It's telling the story. Or if you go watch a movie of Romeo and Juliet, both are valid stories and they're telling the same thing. It's just one is done as a play, and it doesn't matter if it's a you know middle school or high school play. The other is a multi-million dollar film. you know, um, it doesn't matter. What matters is the story being told, and the spirit in which it's being told. My stories, personally, I feel that there's room for both. Of course, my character always wears the hoodie when he's not in uniform. My personal reason for that is because I hate being stuck in the uniform all the time. So I don't. It gets extremely hot, so I'm like, I'm not going to when he's off duty. I'm not, simply not. Um, and I know some people find that extremely irritating. They're like, oh, 20th century clothing isn't in the 23rd century or 24th century. And my thing is like, you're probably right. Um, but I don't have the budget to go buy the 23rd or 24th century clothing, and I'm not going to. So if you finance it, I'll gladly have 23rd or 24th century clothing. Until then, I'm going to wear my damn hoodie. And that's become a staple of my character. In fan films, we play a little bit more loose with those things. So you have to be a little more forgiving on fan film issues. But it doesn't make the story any less valid that they're telling. If it's in the same vein as Star Trek, that's really all it's about. So I would say that my stories, at least, they're not true to Star Trek. They're just stories that happen to take place in the Star Trek universe. Whether that makes it real Star Trek or not, that's up for debate. I see it from both sides, and I've had people say it is real Star Trek, to which I'm very flattered. I've had people say it's not real Star Trek, to which I'm like, well, I see where you say that. My stories aren't. That's not how I write them. But I put them in the Star Trek universe because people watch them when they're recognized in a brand that they know. I've made independent films and they don't get recognized. So you put them in a universe that people know and people tune in. So it's brand recognition there. And it's a nice universe to play in. And it's one that I pay homage to, because it's a universe that I love. So that's my motivations, whether it makes it real Star Trek or not. It's a nice debate to have, but I don't think it's any less relevant than the debate, is Star Trek The Next Generation real Trek or not? It's kind of like the classic debate, Kirk or Picard.
What people are drawn to about Trek are its ideals, the sense of community, of cooperation, of overcoming our differences to be unified. So it might not have the trademark issued on it, but I think the Constar movies, especially, in all fan films, that if they embody the spirit of Trek, then I think that people can see that as being Trek. So people look at fan films or fan fiction as being inferior, but really though, the people that write it officially at one time were just fans too. So in a sense, they are writing stories that they wanted to see as a fan. But because of the position they're in, it gets to be canonized. So I'm not saying that all stories are necessarily worthy of being canonized and recognized by everybody, but if it's something that you enjoy and it's your way to kind of belong to that world, then I think that you're in good company. I think that any writer who's ever worked on anything, any intellectual property, they all came to it as fans. They just kind of got promoted, but they're all fans too. It's all fan fiction. unless it's canonized somewhere. I mean, technically, if it's not Gene Roddenberry doing it, it's just some fan giving their version of Gene Roddenberry's vision. So whether it be Vance, whether it be my small contributions, whether it be the different showrunners, everyone's coming at it as a fan. Everyone is putting their own spin on it. In the case of Menard, I don't even look at Menard as Trek. I look at Menard as its own mythology, its own universe. And there's enough in a Menard movie, all the different characters, all the different story threads. That's what excites me, is the mythology that he's created. And how Vance pulls from all the different Star Trek, the movies, the different series, all these different sources, the novels, they get in there somewhere. He pulls from all these sources to make his own mythology, to blaze his own trail. And I think that's especially exciting.
I found that CBS takes a lot of inspiration from fan films and puts them into their Star Trek productions. So I'd say fan films are pretty damn close to being Star Trek. And really anything that has the title on it, like I feel like can be constituted as that. So they're absolutely real Star Trek. Because you have so much heart and soul being put into it by fans that it's Star Trek. They get it. Fans get it. Stop underestimating fans.
If your definition of real Star Trek is fully sanctioned and licensed films with large budgets and professionals in front of and behind the camera, then to you, fan films are not. But my own personal definition of real Star Trek is more about the feel and tone of a story set inside the Star Trek universe. If you respect the original vision of that universe, then it's real Star Trek. Maybe more so than some of the more recent films made with large budgets and made by professionals.
Anybody who says Star Trek fan films are not real Star Trek, then they totally do not get Gene Roddenberry's overall picture of his vision right there. And to tell you the truth, I think Gene Roddenberry would have been proud on a lot of these fan films. It's just, it don't have to do with like how good the CGI is or how great the sets are. You got a story there to tell, and it's a story that reaches out and touches and make a connection to people. And that's what a lot of these fan films are. They are reaching out. They're touching people. And basically, that's what the original series Star Trek has done. So, people who says Star Trek fan films are not real Star Trek, all I gotta say, you're just not really getting it.
You know, a lot of the sets that you see on there are careful. I mean, there's studios out there such as Studio 66 or Warp 66 down in Georgia, you know, Ticonderoga. These fans, we put these together. We built these. These are in the same dimensions as the Desilu studios. Yeah, it's real Star Trek. My sets are going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be relying on the studios. I'm going to be building basically in my mother-in-law's garage, a bridge in there, and my ready room will be in different parts of the house. But it's the illusion that you put out there. We are making Star Trek, though. We are fans. We love it. And if you're saying it's not Star Trek, then that's fine, you know. But it's Star Trek to me.
I think that some Star Trek films that have come out over the years are much closer to Gene Roddenberry's version than some official Star Trek and some officially licensed non-canon Star Trek. So I think that if someone has the passion not just for storytelling, but for storytelling in the Star Trek universe, and has a passion for keeping Gene Roddenberry's vision of a better future, of human interaction, human cooperation, humans achieving the best that they can be by being human and not, thinking of themselves as superior than their fellow humans. Recognizing that we as humans can reach, a better potential and be more enlightened, but that we have to recognize the sameness in each other despite the differences. That's what the whole Vulcan ethic is about. Infinite diversity in infinite combinations, and realizing and recognizing that we are stronger as a whole because of our differences, not despite them. So fan films that try to do that, try to tell stories of the human experience, whether they have the official approval of CBS Paramount or not, are Star Trek.
I mean, it really is just what you put into it, the heart that you have for it. People think that if you are in a theater watching a movie, that is the only real Star Trek, but it really isn't. It really comes down to the heart of the matter, what you put into it, the story, the time, everything. Just, I really do believe that it is Star Trek.
So if I encountered someone that didn't like fan films, I really wouldn't argue with them, because the reality is there are some people that love fan films and accept them from what they are as an extension of the original idea. And there are others that absolutely cannot accept anything other than the officially produced product. And you can't change their mind on it. It seems, in my experience, people are very set in their ways. They either love what the studio produces and hate what the fans produce, or vice versa, where they might have a problem with what the studio is producing and like the risk-taking the fans make. So, again, if I encountered someone that was very set in their ways, I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince them otherwise.
Well, I don't care what they think. We're expressing ourselves, and I think Gene would have been delighted that we were emulating the universe that he created, that he inspired us. And this is a great way for my friends and I to keep in touch. And even though we live in different states and different countries, in some cases, and this is a way of expressing ourselves, and we're having a good time doing it. So they could try to rain on our parade, but we're still boldly going.
Hard work. It keeps a man honest. That's what I've instilled upon Royce. I think it's something that I think it goes into every film that you watch of the Constar. We love the characters. Without that, there's no real story. We don't go into the films with, an astronomical budget. We go into it with a love of the character, a storyline, a script, a cell phone, and a desire to tell a story. And the one thing that I think the Constar has done is show that anybody can do these things. It's not an ego-driven production. It's not about winning 100 awards. It's not about recognition. It's about, let's go have some fun. Let's go tell some stories. Let's believe in what we're doing. Let's help each other out. If I can help you, damn it, I'm going to do it. If you need help, what can we do to help you? I think that's been the success of the Constar, more so than, the 100+ films that we've done. I think that's been the success, is we've been able to take everybody and include, as many as we can, that we've been able to take so many characters who weren't there before and just delve into who are these people, what makes them tick, and create fully fleshed out characters that, once you look past the budget, they're in the story, you know. I think that's what the Constar is about, is taking everybody, being so inclusive, showing everyone it's not so hard. But it does take some hard work sometimes. It takes dedication. It's not it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's not that hard. If you want to do it, you can. I have a saying in the films that some of us stand on our own together, and I think that's very important. Not only in today's world where everything seems to be falling apart, but I think that's very important for us on a personal basis when we do feel alone. When I first started fan films, I was very suicidal. I felt alone. I felt isolated from everything around me. Fan films gave me an outlet. It gave me a way to work through my struggles. And here I am now, happy father. I love my life. Marriage, happy. And it's one of those things where, as independent as I am, I'm included in a group that I feel is a federation. And Star Trek did that. Fan films did that. When I first started this, I was a very different person, and I would be a very different person if it wasn't for all of this. I'm a very strong believer that the world does not belong to the bad people. I do believe that the good guys will always win. And that's something that I've tried to instill upon Royce. I have to. I'm a dad. It's important to me. Because one day he's gonna watch these films. And all these films have been for him. I want him to look at these films and see my dad had nothing, and he was able to build, and he made it something. What can I do? And I want him to just go. That's what I want anyone who watches these films to do. See someone that has nothing and turned it into something pretty special. Because I think anybody can do that. Anybody can take $200,000, turn that into a film. Anybody can take, $50,000, turn that into a film. Anybody can do, that type of stuff. But to make a film with, nothing, and build and build and build and have, a bunch of costumes, props, a bunch of people, a network of people that work together, that is something special. And I don't consider them people that work for me. They don't. Obviously, they don't. They're too talented for that. They're my friends. We work together. They have an idea. I'm like, screw it, let's do it. That's what I want the legacy of the Constar to be. I want my son to look at this and go, man, my dad did something pretty special. I can do better. That's what I want. And I've got to meet some amazing people. Who gets to say that they've worked with so many talented people? And I think we're all better off, getting to work together, play together. I've been blessed. Thank you to everybody who's worked with me. It's been a lot of fun. And all I can say is I've walked with giants.
Space, the vast unknown. This is the journey of the USS Constar, forgotten by time, forged by fate, to deal with what no one else will.
Do not be conformed to the way of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, so that by testing you may discern the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. discern the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. I've been here for too long. Will you deliver
Brace for impact.
A little louder. Yell it.
Brace in for pack.
No. Brace for impact when I say now. Now.
Brace in for pack.
Brace for impact.
Oh.
Say it with me. Brace for impact.
Brace for impact.
I like it. One more time, but just keep looking forward, okay?
Brace for impact.
Perfect, but don't look at me. Just keep looking forward, okay?
Brace for impact.
One more time.
Brace for impact.
I love it. Okay, let's go to the next one. One more time. We're not done yet.